Chapter 273. With the 3 princes leading the 11 kings, they sneaked into a mountain range and prepared to ambush Yi Qinghan. However, they did not know that Yi Qinghan had already destroyed the entire war zone, leaving only this mountain range. Therefore, their ambush seemed somewhat laughable. Gotcha! Boom! Yi Qinghan dragged the iron chain behind him, causing dust to fly everywhere. He was like a demon from hell, cold and soul-stealing. His 7-foot heavy sword was like an indestructible divine weapon, causing everyone's hearts to tremble in fear. Step by step, he walked towards the mountain range. Every step he took felt like he was stepping on the hearts of kings. Some of them could not take it anymore. Their blood and chi stagnated, and their hearts felt like they were about to explode. Thump, 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 their heartbeats became faster and faster, and the rhythm was controlled by Yi Qinghan. They could not take it anymore. 3 kings threw out their life cards and frantically fled into the distance, hoping that Yi Qinghan would not attack their souls. Yi Qinghan sneered. He grabbed at the void and took away the life cards. He coldly looked at the 3 princes who jumped out from the mountain range. The moon-devouring Ash Wolf King was at the Imperial Prince level. The Mantis King was at the Imperial Prince level. The Ironback Pig was also at the Imperial Prince level. The rest were all experts who could be conferred the title of king. 5 of the 10,000 races, 3 of them were from the human race. They were all direct disciples from ancient times. Even an ordinary inner sect disciple was comparable to the chief disciple of a large family. They had a deep foundation, and the weapons in their hands were much stronger than the weapons used by the disciples of ordinary super forces. Yi Qinghan smiled indifferently and stared at the 3 hidden disciples of the human race. He could not tell where they came from, but since they dared to cooperate with the 10,000 races to deal with the elites of the human race, it meant that the glory of the human race was not important to them. You want to ambush me? Yi Qinghan held the heavy sword and took the life cards of the 3 experts. He could already cross regions, but he did not leave. Instead, he looked down at everyone and asked coldly. Gulp! Yi Qinghan's stare made the hair on the back of their necks stand on end. Their faces turned pale, and they swallowed their saliva. They wanted to retreat, but they were forces that had been passed down since ancient times. They had always looked down on the Tao realm cultivators of the Holy Lands who walked at the forefront of the human race. Even when they met the Emperor's son, they always felt that he was superior. If they were scared away by Yi Qinghan, they would be laughed at by their fellow disciples. Roar with a low growl, the moon-devouring ash wolf returned to its original body. Its claws were the immortal Sex Tao weapons, and its fangs were even more terrifying than the immortal Sex Tao weapons. It arched its body, ready to launch a terrifying attack at any moment. The back of the ironback boar monster was completely covered with black scales. They were densely packed and overlapped with each other. They could block the attacks of the immortal Sex Tao soldiers. If their physical bodies could enter, they would definitely be able to withstand the combined attacks of several princes. At this moment, the 3 princes were looking at Yi Qinghan cautiously. Even if the ironback boar monster's defense was unparalleled, its eyes were still full of vigilance. It glanced at the heavy sword, and its iron scales emitted an eerie cold light. Its defense was activated to the extreme. The Mantis King transformed into its true form. Its 2 large pincers crushed the ground. The solid ground and rocks were as fragile as tofu in its hands. 2 green rays of light stared coldly at Yi Qinghan. It said in a low voice, Yi Qinghan, don't kill everyone. You can cross regions now. The 47th battle zone is right in front of you. Why aren't you leaving? Do you want to raise the 46th battle zone to the ground? So what if I am? Yi Qinghan replied in a domineering manner. The 3 princes and the 8 kings' faces turned gloomy. They felt Yi Qinghan's disdain and were instantly enraged. Brat, which sect are you from? How can you be so arrogant and despotic? Do you know where I am from? A young man wearing a yin yang 8 trigrams gritted his teeth and walked out. He asked coldly. Yi Qinghan's eyes blurred. This kind of clothing was rare, but it didn't mean that he couldn't recognize it. The immemorial yin-yang school could be traced back to the barbaric ancient era. It had long disappeared in the river of history. He originally thought that it had been destroyed, but he didn't expect that it was just a hidden sect. Which of the yin-yang 8 divisions are you from? Yi Qinghan sneered and asked. The young man was shocked. He didn't expect Yi Qinghan to expose his identity with a single sentence. He even knew that the yin-yang school was divided into the yin-yang 2 divisions. The yin-yang school was further divided into the thunder, reincarnation, soul, metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. Any one of the yin-yang 8 divisions could sweep through a superpower. They were comparable to the Tao realm experts of the Holy Lands. They were incomparably powerful as the barbaric killing god. Any one of their disciples would be treated with respect by the Tao realm experts of the Holy Lands. You actually know about the yin-yang 8 divisions. Yes, I am from the Yang division, Lei Zi Feng of the Thunder division. If you know what's good for you, then get lost. Otherwise, once you leave the space, I can kill you with a wave of my hand. The young man was very arrogant. His eyes were full of disdain. Yi Qinghan's soul was a bit more powerful. He was at the great revered realm. If he were in the yin-yang school, he wouldn't even need to guard the door. Not to mention, the soul division of the yin-yang school could easily sweep through a war zone. If they sent out a decent young expert, they could instantly kill Yi Qinghan's soul. Therefore, when the young man saw that Yi Qinghan had recognized his origin, he immediately prepared to use the forces behind him to threaten Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan indifferently smiled. He didn't expect that the yin-yang school would produce such a trash. He actually wanted to use his name to scare people. In the current golden era, the older generation experts couldn't kill the younger generation. If the yin-yang 8 divisions really came to kill him, then it would be a great advantage. If you can recognize the yin-yang 8 divisions, then you must know where I come from, right? If you don't want to offend me, then hand over all your life cards. Then you can go to the 47th war zone. You and I will mind our own business. Another disciple of a powerful hidden sect walked out. Although he was a very ordinary disciple, he had the battle strength of a king. Yi Qinghan couldn't help but admire these hidden sections. They really had a way to cultivate their disciples. A sect or family was equivalent to the union of several races among the 10,000 races. This disciple had a golden Xian character embroidered on his left shoulder. It looked similar to the kill character of the ancient killing god. However, this disciple's origin wasn't any weaker than the ancient killing god. Moreover, his sect's cohesion was even stronger. Xian sect. The ancient killing god's inheritance. This sect had produced 3 great sovereigns. It was also known as the Emperor Xian sect. This Xian sect hadn't appeared in the world since ancient times. Yi Qinghan didn't expect that a disciple would come out. However, this disciple didn't necessarily have the permission of the Xian sect. It was very likely that this disciple had made a decision on his own. Each one of your origins is bigger than the last. Xian sect, yin-yang thunder sect. However, I really can't see through this person's origin. Yi Qinghan laughed coldly and looked at the last human. This person looked very ordinary, but his aura was very special. It was very holy. However, there was a trace of ghostly qi in this holy aura. It was similar to the Ghost Emperor. Although it was very reserved, it still couldn't escape Yi Qinghan's eyes. Shenkei of the God Ghost sect greets fellow Taoist. The young man bowed slightly. Yi Qinghan had never seen or heard of the God Ghost sect. However, the yin-yang 8 sect's Lei Zi Feng and the Xian sect's Xian Zhong's expressions changed drastically. They instantly changed their positions and maintained a distance from Shen Quebec. They looked at each other cautiously. Killing intent appeared in their eyes, as if they had a blood feud with the other party. Shenke. God Ghost Sect, you still dare to walk out so openly? Aren't you afraid that the human race will kill you? Xian Zhong shouted coldly. Why wouldn't I dare? Do you dare to attack me? Even if you join forces, can you do anything to me? Even if you boundary emperors came personally, you wouldn't dare to attack me. I revealed my identity because I think highly of Yi Qinghan. Shen Kei's aura changed. The Ghost Emperor's aura became thicker and thicker. His aura changed completely. Ghost Emperor technique. God Spirit technique. You actually merged them together. Yi Qinghan's voice was hoarse. He gripped his heavy berserk saber and a trace of killing intent flashed in his eyes. Ghost Emperor technique. You actually know this secret technique. It seems like you know quite a lot. However, your eyes seem to be the same as those of ordinary people. This is quite disappointing, Shen Kei said indifferently. I don't know about the God Ghost sect, and I don't have any prejudice against this sect. However, since you cultivate the Ghost Emperor technique, you have a grudge with me. Yi Qinghan's killing intent rose. He was about to attack. Then do you know the origin of the Ghost Emperor technique? It must be because of the first-generation Ghost Emperor technique passed down by the people of the world. The people of the world are ignorant. Seeing how dense your righteous aura is, I didn't expect you to be as ignorant as the people of the world. Shen Kei said disdainfully. His aura rose as he confronted Yi Qinghan. He wasn't at a disadvantage at all. At this moment, the expressions of the three princes and the 7 kings changed greatly. They didn't expect such a terrifying existence to be hiding by their side. However, they didn't know that if Shen Kei suddenly attacked, he could instantly kill them. Leave your life tablets behind and scram. Otherwise, don't blame me for killing you. Shen Kei shouted coldly as his divine sense locked onto the 10 experts. Good, good, good. Shen Kei, just you wait. Others don't dare to kill you because of your sect master. My Xian sect isn't afraid of you. Don't leave Emperor Abyss City. Otherwise, my Xian sect will kill you. Xian Zhong threw down his life tablet and said ruthlessly. His soul disappeared into the boundless space. Lei Zifeng's expression changed as well. He put down his life tablet and glared coldly at Yi Qinghan and Shen Kei before disappearing into the boundless space. The 3 princes' fingers trembled as they realized that things weren't going well. They didn't have much confidence in dealing with Yi Qinghan alone. Now that there was an even more terrifying expert from the Divine Ghost sect, their chances were slim. Therefore, they gave up and escaped from the boundless space. Once they escaped, the remaining kings didn't dare to struggle. They chose to give up on their training and left the space. Only Yi Qinghan and Shen Kei were left in the 46th battle zone. Their auras rose, and although they were more than 10 meters apart, their clothes fluttered as their auras clashed. Shen Kei's cultivation level wasn't high, but his aura alone could completely suppress Yi Qinghan. Unless Yi Qinghan gave up on suppressing his cultivation level, he wasn't confident in winning this battle. Yi Qinghan's killing intent had already been revealed, and he didn't want to hide it anymore. Just as he was about to release his cultivation level to kill Shen Kei, he saw Shen Kei's aura dissipate as he looked at him calmly. Do you know the true origin of the Ghost Emperor technique? Shen Kei asked calmly. Wasn't it created by an almighty during the end of the primordial era? Yi Qinghan asked with a frown. Chapter 274. In the 46th battle zone, wild winds howled and killing intent shot out in all directions. Dark clouds rolled and covered the stars and the moon. 2 experts were dressed elegantly as they swept across the mountains and rivers. Childish. How could someone from the end of the immemorial period create such a high-level secret technique? The Ghost Emperor technique originated from the Divine Ghost sect and was passed down from the mythological era. The Divine Ghost sect controlled the Divine Spirit technique while the Ghost sect controlled the Ghost Emperor technique. At the end of the immemorial period, the Ghost sect betrayed the Divine Ghost sect and went crazy while cultivating the Ghost Emperor technique. He devoured the souls and vitality of 10,000 races to cultivate, which angered the heavens. From then on, the Ghost Emperor technique was notorious for being evil and even implicated the Divine Ghost sect. But why don't you think about it? What kind of secret technique isn't created to kill people? Is the Ghost Emperor technique considered an evil secret technique because it kills people? Have you ever killed anyone with the secret technique you've cultivated? Can it be called an evil secret technique? Doesn't it also depend on who has the secret technique and what method is used to cultivate it? Shen Kei's lips curled into a mocking smile as he mocked coldly. Yi Qinghan was shocked. So the Ghost Emperor technique was a product of the Divine Ghost sect and was passed down from the mythological era. What era was the mythological era? Since ancient times, wasn't it the beginning of the Savage era? A Ghost Emperor technique could stir up the world. How powerful was the Divine Ghost sect? You don't understand history at all. You're making wild guesses about whether a secret technique is good or evil. What a joke. The Divine Martial Emperor and the Awakening Emperor both joined the Divine Ghost sect. If the Ghost Emperor technique is really an evil secret technique, how could the Divine Ghost sect be passed down until now? Yi Qinghan nodded slightly. Regardless of whether what Shen Kei said was true or not, what he said definitely made sense. Any secret technique was created to kill people. It all depended on the method of cultivation and the goal after cultivation. Why are you telling me this? Yi Qinghan squinted his eyes and looked at Shen Kei cautiously. No matter how reasonable Shen Kei's words were, people who cultivated the Ghost Emperor technique could not be trusted. I want to cooperate with you. I want to cross regions and search for my own opportunities, Shen Kei said in a low voice. Yi Qinghan lowered his eyes and pondered. Cooperating with the Divine Ghost sect was like asking a tiger for its skin. The Divine Ghost sect was unfathomable, and the 10 War Kings' mission had yet to be completed. Yi Qinghan did not want to fight with the Divine Ghost sect, which would affect his own mission. When we arrive at the 48th zone, we will rely on our own abilities. Only one of us can enter the 49th zone. Yi Qinghan threw down some life cards and stepped into the 48th battle zone. As soon as the two of them entered the 48th battle zone, Yi Qinghan's gravity god chain lengthened once again. Step by step, Yi Qinghan no longer hid his strength. He started a crazy competition with the God Watchtower. Both of them were fighting hard. Whoever reached 50,000 first would be able to stop the other from crossing the battle zone. In the 49th battle zone, a small white bird that looked extremely wretched was crawling forward. Who else could it be other than that devouring spirit eagle? It wasn't just the parrot's soul that had entered the endless space. Its physical body had also entered. As long as there was spiritual energy, nothing could stop it. As long as there were treasures here, nothing could stop it. In the 49th battle zone, the Qilin Tiger triggered the 9 Dragons Emperor's mission. Congratulations on triggering the second Human Emperor's mission. In the 49th battle zone, there is a low-tier 8th rank secret technique called the Heaven Flipping Palm. It is hidden in a brocade box. It is a secret technique that Human Emperor Xianyuan created when he was young. If you find it, you will be rewarded with a mid-tier 8th rank Azure Dragon Blood Essence. The Qilin Tiger was overjoyed and wanted to roar. A Human Emperor's mission, and a second one at that. It was clear how terrifying his opportunities were. The Heaven Flipping Palm was definitely a supreme treasure of the human race. Once it was cultivated, it would allow one to look down on all living beings of the same level and display the glory of the Human Emperor when he was young. However, before he could cheer, the parrot rushed towards a mountain range with a wretched expression in less than half an incense stick's time. "Tsk, there are treasures in this godforsaken place." The parrot soared into the sky and rushed towards the center of the mountain range. Although the heaven-flipping palm was wrapped in a brocade box, it still exuded Emperor's runes and was full of spiritual energy, attracting the parrot. No one had ever seen a bird wearing the immortal Taoist robe. It also had a pair of transparent wings that boosted the parrot's speed. Its speed was already very fast, and with the wings of the immortal Taoist robe, no one noticed it at all. Even if they did, they would think it was a virtual creature in the space. In the depths of the mountain range, the green birds flew into the air, as if they were frightened. They all fled into the distance. The parrot descended with its head held high. It twitched its nose and sniffed with all its might. Its eyes were fixed on a narrow cave. There were still some weeds growing on top of it. The Chilean tiger might not be able to find such a place even after months of searching, but the parrot found it quickly with its instincts. "Ha ha ha, baby, I'm here." The parrot's sharp claws tore apart the weeds above it and plunged into the cave. It took out a big gem from the heaven and earth ring to illuminate the cave. The cave was not big and was surrounded by stone walls. There was only a brocade box hanging on the wall. The parrot carefully put it down and opened the brocade box. There was a book of a secret technique emitting a golden light. Runes of the great Tao filled the space and did not dissipate. Heaven-flipping palm. What kind of cultivation technique is this? It's a secret technique of the human race. This divine bird can't cultivate it. The parrot's entire body was emitting a trace of evil energy. It did not understand what the heaven-flipping palm was. Forget it. Since I got it, it's fate. Maybe I can exchange you for a 6th-grade sacred pill with my master. The parrot stored the heaven and earth upheaval palm into its spatial ring. Then, it shook its head and sighed. It was like a beggar who had found a diamond, and wanted to exchange it for a large piece of cake. Outsiders would never be able to understand the psychology of a pervert. As soon as the parrot obtained the heaven-flipping palm, the 9 heavens' divine light poured down again, enveloping the world. The second human sovereign mission has been completed. The third will soon begin. Everyone was stunned. The second mission had been completed too quickly. The Chilean tiger's mouth twitched and he clenched his fists. After a long time, he roared. "Who dares to steal my opportunity? I'll kill you." An angry roar shook the heavens and spread throughout the 49 battle zones, scaring all the heroes into chaos. Roar! The parrot could hear it clearly in the mountains tens of thousands of miles away. It showed how angry the Chilean tiger was. I completed the second human sovereign mission. Oh my, then what's my extra reward? Please don't give me any more secret techniques of the human race. Give me some pills. It's best if it's a 9th-grade divine pill. Let this divine bird soar into the sky and become an emperor-level divine bird. I'll conquer the world. The parrot was shocked by the Chilean tiger's murderous energy. Whoosh! The emperors will descended. The virtual image of the 9 dragons emperor appeared in the cave. It had 9 giant dragon heads and a human body. It was incomparably majestic. Plop, the parrot knelt down without any integrity. Its mouth was full of saliva. The emperor of my race, do you think this little one can still achieve it? If you can, give me some opportunities. Just give me some 8th grade or 9th grade divine pills. If you can't, give me an emperor-level secret technique that can be cultivated by the spirit-devouring divine eagle. The parrot touched the saliva on its mouth and flattered to the extreme. If it wasn't for the emperor's strong pressure, it would have pounced on him. The 9 dragons emperor had lived for so many years, but he had never seen such a weirdo. Moreover, it was a will that carried the inheritance. He was stunned by the parrot's words. I'm just a will of inheritance. I can't decide what to inherit. This time, I'm inheriting a drop of 8th grade mid-level Azure Dragon Blood Essence. The fated one can obtain it. The blood essence can forge the dragon bloodline, the will of the 9 dragons emperor said in a low voice. It didn't care whether the parrot could understand it or not. Fuck, does this divine bird want to change its bloodline? Then I'll be neither a dragon nor a bird. Wouldn't I be a freak? The parrot's face was full of disdain. It sneered at the mid-level 8th grade Azure Dragon blood essence. As arrogant as it was, it didn't even care about the mid-level 8th grade Azure Dragon blood essence. However, it didn't know that the reward it received was dozens of times better than Yi Qinghan's low-level 8th grade Azure Dragon blood essence. What should I do? It wasn't easy to complete the human emperor's reward, but I received 2 useless things. This is really infuriating. The parrot received a golden bottle. Inside the bottle was a drop of round blood essence. It emitted a dragon's might and exuded a vigorous vitality. The dragon's blood contained countless secrets. Unfortunately, the parrot didn't know how to use it at all. It only wanted to rely on the miraculous pills to soar into the sky and become a true supreme divine bird. It would be great if it was the blood essence of a divine phoenix. At least it would be from my divine bird race. This Azure Dragon blood essence. This divine bird doesn't want to become a worm. But this bottle is not bad. I'll put it away first. The parrot whispered and put away the jade screen. It was definitely a treasure that could contain the 8th grade dragon blood. The parrot didn't know if it was greedy or not satisfied. It inexplicably received the human emperor's reward, but it was listless. It flew out of the cave and saw the Chilan tiger killing everyone in sight. It couldn't help but tremble. Damn, why am I in the same space as this guy? I'm no match for him. I'll run to the 50th battle zone. The parrot didn't dare to provoke him. It put away its immortal robe and disguised itself as a virtual bird in the space. It slowly fled into the distance. The Chilan tiger was in a killing frenzy. It had already obtained 50,000 life tablets, but it didn't want to leave. It wanted to take back the heaven-flipping palm and the Azure Dragon blood essence. Any creature that appeared in its attack range would be killed instantly. It didn't matter if it was a human or a myriad of races. Even virtual creatures in the space would be killed. Die for me. Whoever took my inheritance, hand it over voluntarily. Otherwise, I'll kill everyone in this battle zone. Now, except for me, no one can cross the zone. Even if you want to leave the space to train, you can't take the inheritance away. If you want to take the inheritance away, you have to at least complete a cross-zone task. So, be smart and hand it over. I'll make you my follower and help you attain your Tao. The Chilan tiger's face was ferocious. In order to take back the heaven-flipping palm and the 8th grade dragon blood essence, it was going crazy. The parrot's butt tightened. It didn't dare to speed up and escape. It still flew forward slowly. Boom! The Chilan tiger killed a human. His soul didn't even have time to escape. The Chilan tiger's blood was boiling. Its eyes scanned the sky and found the parrot. No matter how the parrot pretended, it couldn't hide its wretched aura. Moreover, the Chilan tiger hated the parrot to the core and wanted to devour its flesh and blood. Chapter 275. The Chilan tiger sneered. He did not expect to meet the parrot in the 49th battle zone. In a flash, he appeared in front of the parrot with a ferocious expression. Little parrot, you didn't expect to meet me, did you? The parrot's hair stood on end as it smiled. Oh, it's brother Chilan tiger. What a coincidence. Ha ha ha, I heard that your opportunity was taken away by someone. I think I saw a powerful prince bathing in the divine light and then running in that direction. The parrot said flatteringly as it pointed into the distance. The Chilan tiger was suspicious. He sneered and asked in a low voice, is that a human or a shape-shifting elite? It's a human. It's definitely a human. How could there be an elite among us who dares to steal your opportunity? These scum deserve to die. Brother Tiger, you go destroy him. The parrot's voice was filled with righteousness and seriousness. Brother Tiger, go destroy him. A human. I know. Since you gave me good news, I'll give you an opportunity. How about I send you to hell? The Chilean tiger clenched his fists as his eyes were filled with killing intent. Whoosh! The parrot's hair stood on end as it flew backward. It looked at the Chilean tiger angrily and roared, I've told you such important news. Instead of killing others, you came here to kill others. You're hopeless. Don't worry. He can't take away the opportunity if he doesn't cross over. I have 60,000 life tablets in the 49th battle zone. No one can take away my opportunity. The Chilean tiger sneered and looked at the parrot with disdain. As for the arrogant sect and you bastard, you humiliated me time and time again. Today, I'll make you pay with interest. Fuck, you've misunderstood this divine bird. How could I submit to a human? I just wanted to numb Yi Qinghan. That bastard signed a contract with me, and I was just thinking about how to break the contract and pledge my loyalty to the myriad races. But that bastard just refused to break the contract. I endured the humiliation. You have to understand my intentions. I'm wholeheartedly devoted to the myriad races. The parrot was going crazy. It was not as fast as the Chilean tiger and its combat power was not as strong as the Chilean tiger. Seeing that the stone tablet was not far away, it kept thinking of ways to escape from the Chilean tiger. Ha ha ha, do you think I believe you? The Chilean tiger asked indifferently. You have to believe me, the parrot said solemnly. I swear on the souls of my ancestors that one day, I'll bring the insane sect to a dead end. You go kill the crown prince of the human race, take back the opportunity, and let me go. What do you say? I don't need you to destroy the Kuang sect, so, whoosh, when the parrot heard this, it immediately rose vertically. Then, it made a turn in the air and rushed towards the war zone's barrier. Fuck your ancestors. Little tiger, remember this. This divine bird will remember you. The next time I see you, I will definitely send you into the forbidden area and let you and the dead spirit live a good life. The parrot traveled dozens of miles in the blink of an eye. The barrier of the war zone was right in front of its eyes. It didn't hesitate to curse loudly. Roar. Boom. The Chilean tiger revealed its true form and roared. It reached out with its claws, shattering the space in front of it in an attempt to stop the parrot from getting close to the barrier. The void and earth around the war zone's barrier collapsed. The Chilean tiger's aura suppressed the heavens. The Chilean tiger's aura was enough to suppress any powerhouse of the 10,000 races. However, the parrot didn't care about the bloodline power at all. It moved the stars and rushed to the war zone's stone tablet, glaring at the Chilean tiger. Boy, you've pissed me off. Those who go against this divine bird will not have a good ending. The Chilean tiger sneered and said disdainfully, keep running. I'd like to see how you can cross over without a life token. Crossing over is like drinking water to me. There are no restrictions at all. Look, I'm crossing over. The parrot swooped down and rushed to the 50th war zone, disappearing in front of the Chilean tiger. The Chilean tiger's pupils shrank. It didn't expect the parrot to cross over without a life token. Boy, I'm out again. Come and bite me. If you dare to cross over, I'll kill you. The parrot taunted with disdain. The Chilean tiger was furious. It had offended the Taisui fungus and the insane sect this year. A little girl could humiliate it, and a little bird dared to offend it. It was unforgivable. Roar. The Chilean tiger roared and wanted to cross over to kill the parrot. However, it hesitated when it thought of the human emperor's reward in the 49th war zone. Boy, don't you dare to come. Or are you thinking of the human emperor's inheritance task? Look at this. I've already completed the task. Come and catch me. the parrot said and rushed to the 50th war zone. There were many experts in the 50th war zone. They were about to divide into two teams and were about to fight. The parrot suddenly roared, "Come and see," the Qilin tiger crossed over with the human emperor's inheritance task. Come and get it. He still has 60 or 70,000 life tokens. Dozens of experts heard it and immediately looked at the war zone's stone tablet. The barrier shone brightly. There were indeed experts crossing over. He has the human emperor's inheritance task, the heaven flipping palm, a secret technique created by human emperor Xianyuan when he was young. It's the most precious treasure of the human race. Brothers of the human race, don't let him go. The most precious treasure of the human race must not be taken away by the other races. The parrot roared and used all its true essence to spread its voice far and wide. It could be heard clearly thousands of miles away. The heroes of the human race were excited. The secret technique created by human Emperor Xianyuan when he was young was the most precious treasure of the human race. They must not let the other races get it. Boom! Dozens of figures rushed to the stone tablet. They were all experts of the quasi-emperor level. There were also 3 imperial princes, all young imperial princes of the Holy Land. Brothers of the other races, the Qilin tiger has the 8th grade mid-tier azure dragon blood essence passed down by the 9 dragons emperor. It's the best time to build your bloodline and evolve your physical body. Don't miss it. He has just crossed over and his combat power will drop a lot. It's up to you whether he can prove his Tao or not. The parrot flew and roared. It wanted to summon all the experts of the 50th war zone. The Qilin tiger had just crossed over when the gravity chains locked his ankles and dragged him back to the ground. His cultivation realm was instantly suppressed to the 8th level of the immortal gate. In addition, he was not used to it and could at most unleash the power of the 6th level of the immortal gate. However, before he could recover, his position was blasted into pieces by an overwhelming attack. There were a total of 50 to 60 experts. There were humans and the other races. Each attack had the power of the 5th level of the immortal gate. In addition, there were a few imperial princes and quasi-emperors. That attack was absolutely sharp and directly stunned the Qilin tiger. Roar! You're courting death. The Qilin tiger roared angrily. He wanted to counterattack, but the overwhelming attack collapsed the space. He couldn't even mobilize his spiritual chi and was instantly seriously injured. Cough, cough, cough. Pft. The Qilin tiger coughed out blood. His soul was severely injured and his face was pale. He appeared in his original form and struggled crazily. The chains were flung away and smashed to death several experts. All of you, die. The Qilin tiger's cultivation realm was at the 9th level of the immortal gate. Even if it was suppressed, it was not something these experts could compare to. The huge Qilin figure appeared. Its huge palm smashed the void and defeated more than 10 experts. It opened its bloody mouth and directly swallowed a top expert of the myriad races. Everyone, attack together. We humans don't want the Azure Dragon's blood essence. We only want the heaven overturning palm. Attack. Our bloodline level is not high. As long as we obtain the Azure Dragon's blood essence, we will be qualified to prove our Tao. Kill. The experts of the human race and the myriad races rarely worked together and fought back with all their might. There were also 5 imperial princes at the front fighting head-on. The battle caused the sky to collapse and the earth to split open. Blood stained the ground. The Qilin tiger immediately understood that he had been tricked by the parrot. However, there was no time to explain. The group of people seemed to have gone crazy. They wanted nothing more than to devour his flesh and soul. Sabers flashed and swords flashed as they desperately attacked him. He didn't even have the chance to speak. Everyone, work harder. Kill for me. Kill him and you will be invincible among your peers. You will be imperial princes. the parrot said righteously. It raised its head and roared. After saying this, it desperately fled into the distance. Boom boom boom. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, the void continued to shatter and the earth trembled. The barrier of the battle zone shone with divine light. The Qilin tiger was blasted into the barrier and directly bounced back. His soul was shaken and his divine sense was scattered. His eyes were full of murderous intent. The quasi-emperor of the Qilin tiger clan in the outside world suddenly stood up and clenched his iron fists. He wanted nothing more than to charge into the space and tear those besiegers to pieces. Why are the myriad races and the human race so united this time? The Azure Dragon Quasi-Emperor and the experts of the Tao realm of the human race's sacred land were very surprised. They could only see the video but didn't know what was said. They didn't know that the parrot was behind it. If the Qilin tiger doesn't retreat, it is very likely that he will be killed by these experts. Xia Chen Tian grinned coldly and said indifferently. After saying this, the Qilin tiger's physical body collapsed and his skin wrinkled. He could die at any time. The Qilin tiger quasi-emperor was unwilling to accept this. He was the only expert in his clan. If he was inexplicably eliminated, he would obviously be unwilling. However, with so many quasi-emperors, kings, and emperors joining forces to attack, and the moment they crossed over, they launched an attack. The top 20 experts couldn't withstand it. Damn it, retreat! The Qilin tiger quasi-emperor roared. Unfortunately, he couldn't inform the Qilin tiger. The Qilin tiger's divine sense scattered. The last bit of his will to live supported him. He directly spat out his life card and his soul dissipated. However, the experts of the human race were still unwilling to give up and launched one last attack, completely injuring him. Outside the space, the Qilin tiger's body crashed to the ground and coughed up blood. His physical body was lifeless and he almost died on the spot. The Qilin tiger quasi-emperor's face was ashen. He directly used the best life-saving divine pill in his clan and injected it into the Qilin tiger's body, hanging on to his last thread of life. The emperor bloodline was eliminated for the first time. However, the elimination was too tragic and too sullen. He didn't even have much chance to fight back before he was beaten out of the endless space. This made the quasi-emperors outside the space look at each other. The experts in the space were ashen. No matter how suppressed the Qilin tiger was, he resisted a few times and killed almost half of the experts. More than 10 were eliminated, leaving less than 20 experts. They stood there in a daze, looking at the large number of scattered life cards. Where was the human emperor's reward? Was I cheated? The human race's emperor's body was bathed in a river of blood. His soul-evolved Taoist body was cracking. He thought that he would be able to obtain the heaven upheaval palm, but he didn't expect to get anything. Damn it, who just said that the Qilin tiger has the human emperor's reward? The emperors of the 10,000 races raised their heads and roared. Their eyes were cold and sharp as they scanned the void. However, the parrot was nowhere to be seen. Thousands of miles away, the parrot twisted its butt and hummed. I'm smiling proudly, I'm smiling proudly. Those who go against me never have a good ending. Oh, oh, oh. Chapter 276. In the 50th battle zone, more than 10 quasi-thearch princes and 5 the arch-princes roared angrily. I've never been defeated in my entire life. Today, I was fooled by a bird. I'm going to skin it alive. The arch-princes of some unknown race clenched their fists and roared angrily. It seems to be the bitch bird on Yi Qinghan's shoulder. Yes, now that you mention it, I immediately remember. It's that bitch bird. It was the one who tricked us into attacking. Let's split the life tokens equally. Let's go find that bitch bird. I've offended the Qilin clan. I'm going to vent my anger. Let's go. The elites of the 10,000 races and the human race did not argue this time. They split the life tokens and rushed into the depths of the 50th battle zone. In the 49th battle zone, Yi Qinghan and Shen Ke walked on one side and pushed forward. There were not many people in the battle zone, and the remaining were all experts. However, they encountered a tough nut to crack. The two of them crushed the opponents as they passed by. They were unable to resist at all. There were only 40,000 life tokens left in this battle zone, so they could only fight for them with all their might. Whoosh! They attacked crazily, and all laws submitted. They were incomparably powerful. Shen Ke looked at Yi Qinghan from afar. A glint flashed in the corner of his eyes as he stepped forward. A quasi-thearch prince was right in front of him. He was a human. When he saw Shen Ke, he did not know how powerful he was and charged forward. Azure Dragon subduing sun and moon. The palm shadow seemed slow, but it was actually as fast as lightning. The palm shadow did not dissipate. It was like a long dragon that rose and fell, rolling up the azure sea and attacking the sun and moon. Boom! Before the quasi-thearch prince could make a move, his chest was pierced through, and his soul was destroyed on the spot. He had no chance at all. Azure sea change. Sun and moon merge. Dome break. Whoosh! Shen Ke's momentum did not change. He snatched the life tokens and his figure streaked through the clouds. His aura swept through space and time, as if the world had changed and the sun and moon had merged into one. He broke through the sky, and the smoke and dust on the ground were swept up. It was incomparably terrifying as he charged into the distance. Wherever it passed, all laws ceased to exist, and even space became illusory. The speed at which Shen Ke's techniques changed was simply too fast. It was as smooth as flowing water, as if a heavenly dragon had returned to the water. Yi Qinghan's ankles were more than 20 meters long. They were enough to crush a war king, but they couldn't stop Yi Qinghan's footsteps. Zhong Quan emitted a cold glint as he trampled over 1,000 li, creating a river of blood. Even without using the Nine Heavens Tyrant Dragon art, he was still able to sweep through all of them. His soul was getting stronger and stronger, approaching the peak of the Great Circle of Grandmaster. He was just a little bit away from entering the Celestial Gate and he would have nothing to worry about. The endless space trembled. He became more and more proficient in the space laws. Wherever his divine sense passed by, it slashed out violently from another space. The aura of the Great Path of Destruction directly wiped out the enemy's vitality. Even cultivators who were strong enough to be crowned as kings had no power to resist. He was extremely powerful. The quasi-emperors outside the space looked at each other in dismay. Quasi-Emperor Qilin, who was so angry that his face was contorted, killing intent rising all around. His eyes swept across the 50 battle zones, staring at the backs of those people. Cough cough, the Qilin tiger coughed out a few mouthfuls of blood that had been stuck in his throat. His face was deathly pale as he opened his eyes. There was a flash of astonishment in his eyes and his face was ferocious. Crazy sect. I'm going to make you my enemy. The Qilin tiger clenched his iron fists. He had lost 90% of his vitality. If not for the divine elixir, he would have died long ago. This time, he was screwed over by the parrot. Little tiger, why did those people join forces to beat you up when you just arrived at the 50 battle zones? They didn't even give you a chance to explain. Quasi-Emperor Qilin tiger asked coldly. It would have been better if this was not mentioned. When this was mentioned, the Qilin tiger was almost angered to death. He was robbed of his opportunity and was framed. He was almost beaten to death by dozens of people. Now that he thought about it, he felt aggrieved. Pfft. The Qilin tiger spat out another mouthful of blood essence. His eyes were glowing red as he roared hoarsely, "It's the bird on Yi Qinghan's shoulder, cough cough cough, that bastard bird. I triggered the human emperor's mission in the 49th battle zone and was kidnapped by it in advance. It lured me to the 50th battle zone, but it told everyone that I was the one who received the human emperor's reward. It said that I received the 8th grade Azure Dragon's blood essence and the human emperor Xuanyuan's great sky-turning palm print. That was why the human race and the 10,000 races joined forces. Ah! I'm going to kill those bastards from the Kuang sect. The Qilin tiger was so aggrieved that he burst into tears. His 10 fingers stabbed into the ground and his blood and bones broke. His hatred was monstrous. Only then did everyone understand why the Qilin tiger was eliminated. It turned out that the people in the 50th battle zone were also used as tools. The most unlucky one was the Qilin tiger. He didn't even get to say a word and was beaten up by 70 to 80 people. He was lucky that he didn't die. In the 49th battle zone, Yi Qinghan suddenly realized that the Qilin tiger had been eliminated. He couldn't help but frown. Who in this battle zone could eliminate him so quickly? He looked at the real experts in front of him, including a few people from the Kuang sect. Their life cards didn't increase by tens of thousands in an instant. He couldn't help but be surprised. He thought to himself, could it be that there are still people in the endless space who are holding back? Xia Ziluo, who had run from the 6th battle zone to the 30th battle zone, also realized that the Qilin tiger had been eliminated. She frowned and thought to herself, could it be that the little girl Emperor Yi suppressed the Qilin tiger? I won't lose to that little girl. Jian Qinxue and Emperor Yi were also shocked. After all, the Qilin tiger was their bet. No one wanted to lose. However, they didn't know that the Qilin tiger had almost been killed by the parrot. There were no more experts in the 49th battle zone. Shen Ke and Yi Qinghan were invincible. However, in the end, there weren't enough people to cross the battle zones. The two of them looked at each other and clenched their fists. Their eyes were filled with fighting spirit. Out of the two, only one could cross the battle zone. However, Yi Qinghan and Shen Ke were definitely masters who couldn't be provoked. Shen Ke was unpredictable and mysterious. Yi Qinghan had noticed that from the moment he attacked until now, he didn't repeat any of his secret techniques. Every move was extremely powerful. The lowest level of his secret technique was at the peak of the 7th level. Was the Divine Ghost sect really like what Shen Ke said? Was it an inheritance from the mythological era? Yi Qinghan clenched his fists and stared at Shen Quebec. He said in a low voice, only one of us can cross the battle zone. Make your move. Shen Ke said arrogantly and coldly, you cross 2 battle zones, and I cross 1. You are a peak Grand Marshal revered, while I am a level 8 immortal. It's too unfair to deal with you. Our Divine Ghost sect disdains to do such a thing. Hua. Shen Ke's cultivation dropped to the peak Grand Marshal revered as divine light filled his body. He said indifferently, Yi Qinghan, you are a good opponent. It's a pity that we are not fighting in the boundless universe. Otherwise, it would be interesting to see my full strength. There will be a chance. Yi Qinghan crossed his legs and crushed the ground. Their auras soared into the clouds. The fighting spirit of the two experts was rising. Yi Qinghan's blood was boiling. This was the first time he had fought with an existence of this level. Winning or losing wasn't important. What was important was the experience. I will use my 3 strongest moves. If you can withstand them, you win. If I lose, I will wait for you outside the boundless universe and have a fair fight with you. This time, I will take advantage of you. Shen Ke was indifferent. His eyes were like the scorching sun. His aura rose to the peak. His body was faintly discernible, as if he could break through the void and return to the boundless universe at any time. No one could stop him. These 3 moves are my master's special skills. The Emperor's return to origin, the Emperor's descent, and the primal chaos rebirth. If you can withstand them, the other moves will be useless against you. If you can't, your training will end here. Shen Ke's divinity radiated. He had decided to use a secret technique of the divine spirit technique, the Genesis art. Almost no one in the younger generation knew the name of the six calamities Azure Dragon. It was a strange name. Just from the surname, one would know that it was very ancient. However, if one asked about the Boundary Emperor, everyone knew that he was the strongest Boundary Emperor in the world. He was even stronger than the peak Boundary Emperor of the Eternal Era. He was only half a step away from proving his Tao. He had not appeared for 2,000 years. Even if the human race was crippled, he was not interested in helping. He was one of the experts who did not distinguish between good and evil. Yi Qinghan did not know about the six calamity Azure Dragon, but he could tell that Shen Ke was already very terrifying. His master must be an unparalleled expert who was superior to many quasi-emperors. No wonder Shen Ke said that even if his main body was outside, the quasi-emperors would not dare to hurt him. Boom! Yi Qinghan stabbed his saber into the ground. His dragon blood boiled. He decided to use his strongest battle power, the Nine Heavens Tyrant Dragon art. I will use 3 moves to resist. If I can defeat these 3 moves, I will automatically withdraw from the boundless space. These 3 moves are from the ancient godly killing stone steel. Nine Heavens Tyrant Dragon art, Dragon Tail destroying mountains and rivers, Tyrant Dragon sky shattering roar, and 9 Revolution Heavenly Dragon style. Both sides gave their opponents the highest respect. Life and death were ruled by fate. Riches and honor were ruled by the heavens. These two were going all out. If they were not careful, their souls would die miserably in the boundless space. Their physical bodies outside would also fall. Nine Heavens Tyrant Dragon art, Golden Body Transforming Dragon. It can break all techniques. Yi Qinghan formed seals with his palms. His powerful soul transformed into a 10,000 zhang long golden dragon. Golden light filled the sky. The huge dragon broke through the void and arrived. The terrifying dragon tail contained the will of a great emperor. It could crush the Tao hearts of heroes. It was as if it was going to slap on everyone's heart. Dong dong dong, the Boundary Emperor's hearts were beating rapidly. Their pupils shrank as they looked at the 50th battle zone. Who is Yi Qinghan going to fight with? Xia Qintian was shocked. Up until now, only the Blue Flood Dragon Prince could force Yi Qinghan to use his full strength. He did not expect that there would be someone in the 49th battle zone who could force him to use his full strength. Ultimate Emperor returning to origin. 10,000 techniques in one, kill. Shen Ke put his palms together, and the momentum of the world was forcefully drawn over. He gathered the majestic and vast aura of an emperor, and his soul seemed to be majestic and unshakable. In the blink of an eye, he turned into a divine sword, and his divinity shot out in all directions. He actually wanted to fight against Yi Qinghan's dragon tail. Ultimate Emperor returning to origin. This is the special ability of the 6 calamities Azure Dragon. The disciple of the divine ghost sect has appeared. Zhang Yunshao suddenly stood up. His eyes swept across the countless corpses outside the Emperor Abyss City. His eyes flashed, hoping to find Shen Ke's corpses. Hua hua hua, the dragon tail contained the will of a great emperor. It shattered the void. However, the divine sword transformed from Shen Ke was even more tyrannical. It could break through any shackles. It wanted to break through the dragon tail and rush into the clouds. Boom! Roar! 2 terrifying figures collided in the void. Blood splattered across the sky. Even though the dragon tail contained the will of a great emperor, it was still pushed back by the shockwave. A mournful dragon roar shook the mountains and rivers. Even the giant dragon was sent flying. Hua hua hua. The giant sword transformed from Shen Ke smashed into the ground. It dragged out a torrential flame that burned for 10,000 li. It smashed into the distance. The ground was undulating. Smoke and dust filled the sky. The expert's expressions changed greatly. Chapter 277. Outside Emperor Abyss City, there were still countless human experts who had taken human form. Their Tao hearts were shaken by the attack of Yi Qinghan and Shen Ke, and their bodies were trembling. It was too terrifying. The battle prowess of a great circle marshal revered could definitely tear apart any expert below the 5th stage of the Immortal Gate. Only Thearchs at the 2nd stage of the Immortal Gate could escape with their lives. Boom boom boom. Ka ka ka, the divine sword that Shen Ke had created a deep and wide ravine on the ground. It was so deep that one could not see the bottom. It was at least 100 meters wide. Dust and rocks were shattered into powder, and countless branches extended from the ravine. Shen Ke returned to his original body. His face was pale, and he slapped the ground beside him with his right palm. Instead of retreating, he charged into the air. The gravity chains did not affect him in the slightest. A bloody hole appeared on Yi Qinghan's giant dragon tail. Golden blood spurted out, and golden light shone. The origin of metal and the origin of wood flowed and healed the wound. The dragon's body shrank, and the dragon opened its mouth. It took a deep breath, and the spiritual energy of heaven and earth was sucked dry. Tyrant dragon sky-shattering roar. Roar. The giant dragon head broke through the void and charged into the wilderness. Its aura spread in all directions, and all techniques retreated. Its angry roar caused the void and the earth to shatter. It was so deafening that even Thearchs with weaker cultivations would be killed on the spot. Bam bam bam, the force of the roar caused Shen Ke's black hair to flutter. He was forced to retreat, and his eardrums were restless. Shen Ke frowned as he watched the dragon head get closer and closer. The destructive power of its angry roar was getting stronger, and the blood in his body surged. His soul was in a mess, and his divine sense was collapsing. He could not help but bite the tip of his tongue and focus his mind. His palms madly formed complicated seals as he mobilized all his strength. Emperor descends from the heavens. A dignified and ancient voice seemed to cut through the ages. Shen Ke's aura was sacred, and it was as if an emperor had personally arrived. His figure, battle intent, and his entire temperament were rising. It was not to be blasphemed. Just as the move said, if an emperor descended from the heavens, who would dare to fight him? Shen Ke raised his hand slightly and formed a giant hand that covered the sky. It was as if the entire sky was shaking. It was as if an emperor had attacked, and the great Tao had descended. Suppress. Shen Ke's voice carried the will of the heavens. He waved his hand, and he wanted to smash the dragon head. Boom! The giant hand that covered the sky shattering heavens. The dragon's roar did not shatter the giant palm. The two collided violently. The dragon's horn shattered mountains and rivers as it collided with the giant palm. Yi Qinghan's spiritual awareness was almost shattered. He coughed up blood and flew backward. The huge dragon head was thrown into the depths of the untainted land. Boom! Puff, outside the space, countless young men and mighty figures were sent flying while coughing up blood. Their faces were as pale as paper, and their bodies trembled. They were unable to maintain their Tao hearts. The difference in power between those of the same level was simply too great. Even their hearts of becoming kings were crushed, let alone proving their Tao. Hiss. Many of the boundary emperors sucked in a breath of cold air. This divine watchtower was too terrifying. They never thought that Yi Qinghan would actually be able to withstand it. Yi Qinghan felt dizzy and returned to his original body. He could no longer maintain his golden dragon body. He stood 1,000 miles away and stared at Shen Ke, his eyes filled with disbelief. This divine ghost sect was indeed a little strange. He had used an emperor-grade secret technique. Although he could only use a 10,000th of its power, it was enough to kill those of the same level countless times. However, against Shen Ke, he could only injure both sides. Being suppressed by the two divine gravity chains was not a reason or an excuse. It was just that his understanding of the Nine Heavens Tyrant Dragon technique was not deep enough. If he was in his younger state, he would definitely be able to suppress Shin Quebec. Shin Kei was also shocked. He had used his strongest battle strength. Although his realm was suppressed, he was still at the same level as Yi Qinghan. Furthermore, he had gained a slight advantage. He had not been able to completely injure Yi Qinghan. Instead, he had been forced back more than 10 steps. Shin Kei looked at his palm. There was a bloody hole where blood was spurting out. There was actually a destructive aura attached to the wound. The origin of metal had torn the wound, and the dark element had eroded his vitality. There was no way to heal it. I really underestimated you. You have actually comprehended the embryonic form of the great Tao of destruction and have almost completed the 5 elemental Tao body. Perhaps you really do have the qualifications to compete with me for the great Tao throne. Shin Kei flickered, and killing intent flashed across his eyes. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly as he thought to himself, there is no hurry. His realm is much lower than mine. I need him to be my stepping stone. Perhaps the 5 elemental Tao body will be my wedding dress. If I can't destroy his soul, he definitely won't be able to survive the primal chaos revival in his current state. It seems like I have to retreat. Shin Kei's expression was indifferent as he strenuously suppressed the Tao of Destruction's aura. His face was deathly pale as he continuously retreated. He raised his head and said to Yi Qinghan, Brother Yi is indeed powerful. No wonder you were the first person to complete the human sovereign's mission. You were also able to subdue 2 sovereign bloodlines. Shin Kei is ashamed of his inferiority, and after 2 attacks, you still have the strength to use a 3rd move. I want to fight with you in the primal chaos revival. Yi Qinghan's fingertips trembled slightly as he stared at Shin Quebec. He did not expect Shin Kei to admit defeat at the last moment. Brother Shen, thank you for letting me win. Yi Qinghan squinted his eyes. He could see that Shin Kei still had strength left, but he did not want to fight anymore. As for what he was thinking, Yi Qinghan did not care. In any case, he would not be friends with him. It was fine if they were strangers, but it would be best if they were not enemies. I am a member of the Divine Ghost sect. I am really worried about my main body outside, so I will do Brother Yi a favor. I will give you all these life tokens. I will leave now. If you have time, come to the ghost domain. There will be endless opportunities waiting for you there. Shin Kei threw out his life tokens. There were still more than 80,000 life tokens inside. It was definitely a huge number. Yi Qinghan received the life tokens. He did not think about Shin Kei's words. Instead, he sat cross-legged on the ground and tried his best to recall Shin Kei's ultimate emperor origin returning and Emperor Heaven descends. He also tried his best to recall Shin Kei's method of forming seals. Shin Kei's hand seals were extremely fast, and they were also very complicated and difficult to understand. Yi Qinghan's skill stemmed from his courage, and he wanted to imitate Shin Kei's hand seals just by looking at it. If Shin Kei knew about this, he would definitely regret not using his full strength and keeping Yi Qinghan in the boundless space. The God Martial Emperor code in the depths of his soul suddenly flipped pages and slowed down Yi Qinghan's memories by millions of times. Shin Kei's hand seals seemed to be in slow motion, making Yi Qinghan overjoyed. Although there were only 2 moves, they were definitely the most terrifying secret techniques. Especially the Emperor Heaven descends. Just its aura alone could suppress the imperial sons and saintesses. In the 50th battle zone, the parrot flapped its little wings and looked around, trying to find more treasures. However, there were no treasures in this space other than the Emperor task. This godforsaken place. This divine bird must have been possessed to come here. The parrot's face was full of regret. If the Qilin tiger knew about this, he would definitely rush in and strangle it. How do I get out of this space? This human emperor's mission has nothing to do with me. It's all useless stuff, and it's all for that bastard. This time, I must get something good from him. Otherwise, don't even think about taking away the heaven-flipping palm imprint and the mid-tier 8th grade Azure Dragon blood essence. The parrot's black eyes flashed as it walked around and prepared to go to Area 51. It's over there. Stop it. Boom. Whoosh. There were more than 10 experts. 5 of them were Imperial sons, while the rest were all quasi-emperor level. Those who could survive the Chilean tiger's attack were definitely experts among experts. They were extremely fast and surrounded the parrot in an instant. The parrot was shocked. It looked at the crowd innocently and asked in confusion, "Heroes, what are you doing? I don't even have a life jade on me. If you don't believe me, you can search for it. You said the Chilean tiger had the emperor inheritance reward, right? You killed us with a borrowed knife and injured us severely without any benefits. How dare you trick me?" A top human expert from a superpower shouted at the parrot coldly. Fuck. This is the first time I've been fooled, and I was fooled by a bird. Today, I will skin you alive. Everyone rubbed their fists and palms together. They all wanted to torture the parrot. The parrot swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Seeing so many people in such a sorry state and still alive, it guessed that the Chilean tiger had been eliminated. Heroes and heroes. Please calm down and don't be impatient. Actually, I know that Area 51 really has the Emperor inheritance reward. You all know that I am a devouring spirit eagle. I am very sensitive to treasures. I only need to sniff the entire area to know if there are any treasures. Believe me, this time, we'll arrive at Area 51 after crossing the area. Follow me and you'll know. The human emperor's inheritance, the reward of the 9 dragons emperor, and the reward of human emperor Shenyuan. Just thinking about it makes me excited. The parrot's saliva flew everywhere. It was afraid that people wouldn't believe it. Since it couldn't escape, it simply flew back to the ground and curled up with its wings around its head. It looked extremely wretched. Look at me, poor me. I don't have any battle strength. So many of you are surrounding me. How could I dare to trick you? The parrot begged. The parrot wanted to cry, but no tears came out. It was extremely vexed. Why did it come back here? It didn't come up with its soul, but with its body. Others could escape by throwing out their life jade, but what could it throw out? Nonsense. You didn't even enter Area 51. How do you know there is the Emperor inheritance reward there? The experts of the myriad races roared. They wanted nothing more than to slap the parrot to pieces. I went in, but there were experts there. There were quite a few who were as strong as you. I didn't dare to go in, so I retreated. The parrot said. Seeing that the parrot was still trying to trick them, the crowd couldn't help but close in. They transformed into immortal Sect Dao soldiers and laughed wildly as the parrot shivered. This is the first time I've heard of someone who entered Area 51 and returned to Area 50. You have a reputation as a lowly bird. Do you think we'll be fools to believe you? The experts of the human race scolded. You don't believe me? I didn't have a life jade, but I still went from Area 49 to Area 50. How hard could it be to go from Area 51 to Area 50? The parrot smiled bitterly and pretended to sigh. Actually, the people of the insane sect and the Chilean tiger clan have a great enmity. You all know that. I was forced to use you. I really want to make it up to you. I want to use the Emperor inheritance reward to make up for your losses. My master is not with me, and I have no battle strength. Don't you think I have to rely on you to save my life? How could I harm you? The crowd was skeptical. The parrot was really strange. It didn't need a life jade to go back and forth. It was possible that it could come back. Area 51 is really a treasure. I'm a godly spirit-devouring eagle. Believe me. Whoever crosses with me, I'll help you find the treasure. But you have to guarantee my safety, the parrot promised. Hearing this, the crowd immediately became vigilant. They were afraid that someone would suddenly attack them and steal their life jade. They wanted to cross with the parrot and fight for the emperor inheritance reward. The parrot rolled its eyes and kept retreating. However, it didn't dare to escape. It was afraid that these people wouldn't fight. It said loudly, "The emperor inheritance reward. The imperial son wants to prove his Tao. Without the emperor inheritance reward, how can he prove his Tao? The opportunity is right in front of you. It's up to you." Chapter 278. In the 50th battle zone, more than a dozen experts from the human race and the 10,000 races were looking for trouble with the parrot. However, after being fooled by the parrot, the hostility between them was very strong. The human race and the 10,000 races were about the same in terms of numbers, but the human race had one more prince than the 10,000 races, so they had an advantage in terms of combat strength. The parrot's eyes flashed, and it immediately shouted, "Brothers of the human race, the crazy sect belongs to the human race after all. I am loyal and devoted to the human race. Of course, I hope that the reward of the emperor in the 51st battle zone belongs to the human race. If you join forces to kill them, the life tokens may be enough for you to cross the zone together." When the 3 princes and the 5 quasi-emperors of the human race heard this, their eyes lit up. They looked at each other and said in a low voice, "Kill." Boom! Whoosh! More than a dozen experts suddenly erupted and charged at each other. Their eyes were red, and they did not care that they were teammates anymore. They fought until the sky collapsed and the earth cracked. Sword rainbows were like lightning, darting around in the void. After all, the human race had one more prince. That prince almost wiped out the quasi-emperors. He attacked continuously, severely injuring several quasi-emperors on the spot. Those quasi-emperors' faces were pale, and they did not dare to waste any more time. They directly threw out their life tokens and fled. The human race prince did not care about collecting his life tokens. He joined forces with the chief disciple of another super force again and pounced on the quasi-emperors. The 2 of them joined forces and the 10,000 races retreated. "Brothers of the human race, do your best. I am with you." The parrot roared, and its body kept moving to the side. Its eyes were fixed on these people. It wanted to leave, but it was afraid that they would react and crush it again. It could only wait anxiously. The sudden infighting in the 51st battle zone shocked the quasi-emperors outside. Soon, 6 quasi-emperors in the battle zone were eliminated. 5 quasi-emperors from the 10,000 races and 1 from the human race. Aren't they teaming up? Why are they suddenly fighting again? Everyone muttered to themselves. They did not understand but felt that it was awesome. This group of idiots must have been used by that bitch bird again. Idiots. They are all idiots. The Chilean tiger roared, wanting to kill again. Everyone looked at the Chilean tiger with disdain. It scolded others as idiots, but it was also tricked out. Although everyone was unhappy with the Chilean tiger, they did not dare to say it out loud. They could only mock it in their hearts. Yi Qinghan was in the 49th battle zone. The little man in his sea of consciousness kept practicing the extreme king's return to origin and king's heaven's descent. Gradually, it looked like it had the power to attack. However, king's heaven's descent still felt like it lacked the presence of a king. Yi Qinghan lowered his eyebrows as he pondered. He closed his eyes and tried to recall Shinkei's hand seals again. He played them in slow motion and finally realized that there was a problem. When Shinkei attacked, his soul would draw on heaven's might. The illusory figure behind him seemed to be formed by heaven's might. Heaven's might was the might of an emperor, and it was enough to suppress all life in the world. Emperor's descent. The tiny figure went deep into the chaos and formed a seal with both hands. The heavenly might in the void was vast and mighty. The chaos poured down and gathered into an indomitable phantom that stood behind the tiny figure. The tiny figure raised his hand slightly and the phantom did the same. He mobilized the heavenly might and shouted in a low voice, "Suppress." Boom boom boom. Hua hua hua, the sky was shaken until it collapsed. It was as if an emperor had descended with the sky, suppressing the stars and piercing through the sun and moon. Its aura was overflowing. In the depths of the chaos, the stars exploded, and the sun and moon lost their color. The tiny figure stood proudly as if the emperor had descended. In the boundless space, Yi Qinghan opened his eyes. A radiance broke through time and space and scanned the universe. It was as if he had seen through space and entered the boundless universe. That gaze was soul-stirring. The Qilin tiger stared at the 49th battle zone and clenched his fists. His eyes were filled with killing intent. Bastard! You've improved so quickly. A year ago, you were still a bug that I could casually crush. A year later, you can actually stand shoulder to shoulder with an ordinary prince. If I give you another half a year, won't you climb above my head? Yi Qinghan's improvement made the quasi-emperors exclaim in admiration. However, they did not know that he had secretly learned Shinkei's special skill. At this moment, he only had the appearance of it. After a few actual battles, he would definitely not be inferior to Shinkei's power. In addition, he had the divine martial imperial codex to copy it. Perhaps he would be able to explode with even greater battle prowess. Boom! Yi Qinghan crossed the battle zones again. From the 45th battle zone, he crossed several battle zones and finally stepped into the 49th battle zone. However, there was no one left in the 49th battle zone. Once again, he stepped into the 50th battle zone. The 50th battle zone was dyed in blood. Dark clouds rolled in the vast sky. The experts of the 10,000 races roared in anger. They were not willing to be eliminated. However, the humans were gaining more and more advantages. Finally, the arch-level expert was eliminated. A human the arch was severely injured and had no choice but to withdraw from the trial. The number of people on both sides was decreasing. There were only 2 thearchs left in the human race. There was only one left in the 10,000 races who was still struggling bitterly. He looked ferocious and was not willing to withdraw. Don't force me. Otherwise, we will all have to withdraw from the trial. The silver wolf the arch growled. His green eyes were soul-stirring. He revealed his true form and arched his body. His sharp claws shattered the ground. He was ready to attack at any time. The 2 thearchs of the human race were panting. They had used all their trump cards, but they could only fight with the silver wolf the arch until both sides were severely injured. At this time, most of the people had been eliminated. The corner of the parrot's mouth twitched. There were still 3 of them. Who knew if there were any emperor missions in the 51st region? What if there weren't? Anyway, it had not entered the 51st region yet. It definitely could not follow the 3 of them in. If there were no missions, the 3 of them would definitely be beaten up. 2 against 1, and you don't even have the confidence to win. What's the point of proving your Tao? Even if there are emperor rewards ahead, you won't be able to get them. The parrot scolded angrily. It was as if it expected better from them. The 2 thearchs of the human race looked at each other. They gritted their teeth and decided to charge at the silver wolf. Kill! Swish, 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 more than 10 sword lights shattered the void and surrounded the silver wolf. Roar the silver wolf was extremely fast. Its sharp claws pierced through the void. It used the space laws to travel through an alternate space and disappeared in front of the thearchs. The parrot was shocked. If the thearchs knew the space laws, it would be bad. The 2 thearchs of the human race were definitely not a match for the silver wolf. Run! The parrot landed on the ground and dodged their gazes. It began to escape into the distance. Boom! The silver wolf broke through the void and appeared in front of the two Thearchs. Its fangs pierced through everything and bit at the throat of one of them. It was as fast as lightning. Ah! Save me! Pucci, the Thearchs of the human race stabbed at the silver wolf's chest. However, the silver wolf did not dodge at all. It allowed the sword to pierce through its chest and bit off the Thearch's throat. In an instant, the Thearchs of the human race was on the verge of death. They threw away their life cards and prepared to leave the trial. The silver wolf did not stop them. It only wanted to injure both sides. If it could not get the Emperor rewards, the two Thearchs of the human race would not get it either. Therefore, it allowed blood to spurt out of its wound and its soul to wither. It turned around and pounced at the two Thearchs. They've all gone crazy. The Thearchs of the human race grinned coldly. If both sides were injured, as long as he killed the silver wolf and obtained all the life cards, he would definitely be ranked in the top 100 of the life cards. That kind of reward was enough to make any Thearchs go crazy. Ha ha ha, a half-dead silver wolf dares to fight with me. The Thearchs of the human race laughed. His sword flashed and he shouted, "Water origin, appear. Drain its blood." Whoosh! The bloody hole in the silver wolf's chest shot up into the sky. Its chi and blood did not listen to its instructions and began to spurt out. Its soul instantly collapsed. Roar! The silver wolf roared and used all its strength to tear the void apart and travel through the alternate space. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, the Thearchs of the human race desperately shattered the space around him. He did not want to be ambushed by the silver wolf. His eyes were filled with ferocity and excitement. As long as he could stall for time, the silver wolf would definitely lose. Everyone in the 50th battle zone would be trampled under his feet. The parrot turned around and saw everything clearly. Not only did it give up on escaping, but it also approached the battlefield. I wonder what this life card is for. When I get the life card of this battle zone, I might be able to exchange it for some 7th grade sacred medicine or something. Roar! A shrill cry resounded through the mountains and rivers. The silver wolf Thearchs of the human race was covered in blood. It charged out of the void and its sharp claws pierced into the Thearchs of the human race's back, almost tearing his soul apart. Ah! The Thearchs of the human race roared and stabbed his sword back. It pierced through the silver wolf's waist and into its left chest, almost piercing its soul. Go to hell! The human and the wolf fought wildly. Both of them were injured and their blood stained the ground. They could die on the spot at any time. At the last moment, neither of them was willing to give up. Whoever lasted until the end would be able to cross over and search for the Emperor's reward with the parrot. Unfortunately, they were too naive. The parrot was wearing the immortal sex robe. It was as fast as lightning and directly pounced on the battlefield. Watch my sky-burning fire. Burn! Whoosh! The parrot took a deep breath and spat out flames that were not inferior to the 6 true flames. Everything that touched it would be set ablaze. The two Thearchs of the human race were full of vitality. As soon as they touched it, they were ignited. Even their souls could not escape. Ah! The Thearchs of the human race and the silver wolf screamed. Their shrill cries shattered the void. Their souls were set ablaze. The pain was absolutely unbearable. Whoosh! 2 life tokens were thrown out. The silver wolf and the Thearchs of the human race fled frantically, trying to extinguish the flames on their souls. However, in a breath's time, 1/3 of their souls were burned away. Their souls were almost set ablaze. The silver wolf and the Thearchs of the human race almost went crazy. They rolled on the ground. It took 2 breaths of time for the soul to leave the space. However, these 2 breaths of time were longer than 10,000 years. The parrot's eyes shone brightly. It wanted to pounce on the green wolf and kill it completely. However, the space barrier between the 50th and 49th battle zones shone brightly. Lightning split the space and time. A figure crossed the mountains and rivers. Gravity chains that were 50 meters long wrapped around the strong cultivator's ankles like a divine dragon. Boom! It was Yi Qinghan. As soon as he entered the 50th battle zone, his soul was sublimated and he instantly broke through the immortal gate. There was no need to suppress it anymore. First layer of the immortal gate. Although it was only a small increase in cultivation level, it was a fundamental change. Only by entering the immortal gate could one enter the ranks of the strong. Otherwise, the thearchs of the great martial honored realm would not even be interested in them. Yi Qinghan's aura rose and rushed into the clouds. He was like a god of war descending. His aura suppressed the 50th battle zone. Fuck, this bastard has become so strong. The parrot muttered. Suddenly, it became serious and raised its head to squawk. It flattered, "Hey, master, I got you a lot of life tokens. Come and pick them up." Chapter 279. Yi Qinghan's aura changed. He looked at the parrot and almost fell from the sky. This guy didn't even participate in the competition. How did it get into the boundless space? Whoosh, Yi Qinghan used the law of space and rushed to the center of the battlefield. He saw the silver wolf and the human prince's souls gradually disappear into the boundless space. There were still flames on their bodies. He couldn't help but look at the parrot in surprise. Could this guy kill two princes in one go? Obviously not. The silver wolf and the human prince's eyes were filled with unwillingness. They wanted to tear the parrot into pieces. In the end, they were eliminated in humiliation. "Master, look, I've collected all the life cards in the battle zone. I knew you would come, so I took care of these little bastards. You don't have to work so hard. Take them." The parrot said flatteringly, pointing at the life cards scattered on the ground. Yi Qinghan raised his eyebrows and looked coldly at the blood and the countless life cards on the ground. 100,000 life cards, plus the Qilin Tiger's 70,000, were all here. Then, he waved his hand and took them all. There were now 300,000 life cards. The person in front of him was only 30,000 life cards away from him. "Did you kill all of them?" Yi Qinghan obviously didn't believe the parrot. He couldn't help but ask in a deep voice. "Of course. Once this divine bird's divine body trembles, how can these little fellows be my match?" The parrot raised its head and said proudly. It was so thick-skinned that it didn't even remember the scene where it hugged its head with its wings and begged for mercy. "Did you trick the Qilin Tiger out?" Yi Qinghan raised his eyebrows and asked. "Ahem, I used a little trick. The Qilin Tiger was just so. As soon as it entered the 50th battle zone, it didn't even have time to breathe before it was kicked out," the parrot said arrogantly. Yi Qinghan sneered. This parrot was too deceitful. If he didn't sign a contract with it, he wouldn't feel at ease keeping it by his side. Otherwise, he would be grateful if he was killed by it. Asterisk crack, asterisk. Yi Qinghan clenched his fists, and his iron bones cracked. He looked down at the parrot and asked in a low voice, "Tell me, were you the one who completed the second task?" The parrot's expression changed. It had wanted to use the heaven-turning palm seal and the 8th grade Azure Dragon's blood essence to exchange for some treasures. But now, it was giving them to Yi Qinghan so cheaply. "That's not it." The parrot's eyes flickered with a crafty gleam as it vetoed the idea. "Really?" Yi Qinghan stretched out his hand, and grabbed the parrot in the palm of his hand. He discovered that the parrot's body had come in, and not its soul. He couldn't help but feel a surge of emotions in his heart. This weirdo really couldn't be calculated using common sense. "That's..." The parrot shivered as it looked at Yi Qinghan's deep eyes, which seemed to radiate a terrifying will. It shook its head and said, "No, I really did get it. Master, why are you so smart? I wanted to give you a nice surprise. The parrot's expression instantly took a 180-degree turn. It said in a wretched manner, Master, do you know what I got? Take a guess, I guarantee that you'll smile from ear to ear. Cut the crap. Give it to me. Yi Qinghan glared at the parrot. The first human emperor's reward was enough to move anyone. The second human emperor's reward obviously wouldn't be any worse. How boring. Alright, here you go. This is a drop of azure dragon blood essence of the middle 8th grade. There is also the great heaven overturning palm imprint created by human emperor Xianyuan when he was young. Is it 7th grade or 8th grade? I forgot. The parrot hurriedly threw out 2 items and said in a flattering manner, Master, I know that this heaven-turning palm seal is an important secret technique for you to prove your Tao. The Qilin tiger chased me through the war zone, but I didn't give it to him. I wanted to keep it even if I had to die. If I give it to you, then I can die in peace. I'm loyal and devoted, and my body is full of courage. I fought with my own body. The parrot chattered on, its eyes red. If it were anyone else, they would have been moved to death. Yi Qinghan's lips curled up. He accepted the heaven-turning palm seal and the 8th grade azure dragon's blood essence. He looked down at the parrot, not wanting to expose it. What do you want? Just tell me. Once we're out of the war zone, I'll give you double. Ha ha ha, Master, you're the best to me. Actually, I don't have much appetite. Just give me a dozen 8th grade saint pills and divine pills. Really, I don't want too many. The parrot sat on Yi Qinghan's hand, rubbing its 2 little claws together as it looked at Yi Qinghan with anticipation. Yi Qinghan curled his lips. A dozen 8th grade saint pills and divine pills. Was he trying to empty the ancient killing god's pockets? This was called having a big appetite. He really wanted to ask the parrot what it was like when it had a big appetite. I'll do my best. Once we're out of the endless space, I'll look for materials and refine divine pills that are suitable for you. I'll try my best to help you evolve into a 8th grade spirit devouring godly hawk as soon as possible. Yi Qinghan said. Ha ha ha, Master is mighty. How about I take you to the human sovereign's mission? Our life cards are enough for you to destroy 6 war zones. The parrot said excitedly. You can sense the rewards of the human sovereign's mission. Yi Qinghan was curious. This bird was a bit too terrifying. Of course. All the treasures in the world can't escape my eyes. The parrot said proudly. As long as it entered a war zone, it could sense if there were any treasures worth lingering over. Let's go to War Zone 51. The parrot ran onto Yi Qinghan's shoulder and valiantly rushed toward War Zone 51. As soon as he entered the immortal gate, the 5 gravity god chains couldn't restrain Yi Qinghan. Rustle rustle rustle. Boom boom boom, the earth rumbled. Yi Qinghan was like an ancient killing god. He reached out and broke through the barrier, entering War Zone 51. War Zone 51 had already been broken up. There weren't many people who could win. They were gathered together to discuss how to deal with the people who crossed over. When they saw Yi Qinghan imprisoned by 6 chains, their hair stood on end. They didn't know whether to be sad or happy. To be able to cross over 6 war zones, he was definitely not an ordinary powerhouse. Yi Qinghan's lips curled up. He shouted in a low voice, Emperor's Descent. The aura of War Zone 51 changed greatly. It was like an emperor had descended, overlooking all living things and destroying everything. Boom boom boom, a giant hand covered the sky and cut off half the sky. It suppressed the earth and swooped down on everyone. The void collapsed and the earth bobbed up and down. A few powerhouses didn't even have time to escape before they were suppressed. Yi Qinghan put away his life card and stepped toward the center. Emperor's Descent was extremely fast, but it ended even faster. Before anyone could change their eyes, Yi Qinghan had finished the battle. However, Heaven Dominator kept staring at Yi Qinghan and found something wrong. He said in a low voice, "This little guy actually secretly learned the 6 Disasters Azure Dragon special skill. What a terrifying talent. He only saw someone use it once. He actually learned 50% of his battle strength. If he's allowed to cultivate for a few more days, he might not be any weaker than the Divine Ghost Sect's disciples." There were also people who saw Yi Qinghan's posture when he finished. They couldn't help but frown and ask, "What move did Yi Qinghan use just now? I didn't see it. It ended too quickly." Everyone looked at each other. Now, Xia Ziluo had crossed 45 battle zones and rushed to the 51st battle zone. She and Yi Qinghan looked at each other across space. Yi Qinghan looked at the hundreds of meters of iron chains behind Xia Ziluo and couldn't help but be surprised. This little girl had changed too much. The wordless stone tablet had actually allowed her to grow to this level. However, this couldn't be entirely attributed to the heaven-quelling technique. Her battle strength was already comparable to Emperor Ye's. After learning the heaven-quelling technique, she had become a strong candidate for the throne. Qilin Tiger was kicked out by you. Xia Ziluo was valiant and valiant. Her voluptuous figure showed that she was still a peerless beauty. The iron chains on her ankles didn't affect her movements at all. When she saw Yi Qinghan, the first thing she asked was Qilin Tiger. This was very important to a woman like her who didn't admit defeat. She could lose to anyone but not Emperor Yi or Jian Qinxue. Yi Qinghan shook his head slightly. Before he could say anything, the parrot raised its head and said proudly, "It was this divine bird who threw him out. He's just a piece of trash. Why do I need master's help?" Xia Ziluo clenched her fists and looked at the parrot coldly. A mocking smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. Qilin Tiger had the bloodline of a 9th-tier immortal sect emperor. Not to mention the parrot, even Yi Qinghan might not be its opponent now. The parrot was obviously fooling her when it said that it had kicked Qilin Tiger out. It was indeed done by it. It met Qilin Tiger in the 49th battle zone. I only met the parrot in the 50th battle zone. Yi Qinghan explained in a low voice. Xia Ziluo's mouth twitched. It turned out that she had lost to the parrot. This bitch bird really ruined her plan. Otherwise, she would see how Emperor Yi could be arrogant in front of her after she had killed Qilin Tiger. "Ha ha ha, you've all lost. Master is mine. None of you can take him away. Ha ha ha." The parrot lay on Yi Qinghan's shoulder and laughed evilly. Its voice spread far and wide. Yi Qinghan and Xia Ziluo both staggered and almost fell to the ground. "Scram! If you dare to talk nonsense again, I'll slap you to death." Yi Qinghan was slightly angry. This bastard was definitely rubbing it in. Crack! Xia Ziluo clenched her fists. She really wanted to punch the parrot and let it have a taste of being beaten. Ahem, I was just joking. Don't take it seriously. Little princess, don't be angry. Look at you. You're peerless and dignified. You don't lose to any man. I can tell at a glance that you're going to prove your Tao. Don't be so calculative with me, watch your mouth. Otherwise, I won't let you have a chance to speak. Xia Ziluo snorted coldly and stepped towards Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan didn't move at all. His green robes billowed as he stared at Xia Ziluo. He whispered to himself, could it be that her life jade isn't enough to go to the 52nd battle zone and she wants to fight me? Don't worry. My life jade is enough for me to become the king of 100 battles. Xia Ziluo looked at Yi Qinghan coldly and arrogantly. It's not like I'll only marry you. If that little girl fights with me again, I guarantee that you'll belong to me. No one else can share you. Xia Ziluo was too strong. She was confident that she could prove her Tao. No man in the world was worthy of her. However, she had the right to be arrogant. The parrot's mouth twitched. It really wanted to retort, but after thinking it over, it didn't dare to. Otherwise, this woman in front of it would really shut it up. Yi Qinghan's lips curled up, revealing a faint smile. His eyes gave off a trace of intent as he said in a low voice, "I'll marry whoever I want. No one can stop me, not even you." Chapter 280. In the 53rd zone, the two great masters were facing each other. Really? Get the king of 100 battles first. My man is destined to be the king of 100 battles. If he can't even get the king of 100 battles, what's the point of boasting? Xia Ziluo said disdainfully. Yi Qinghan smiled. The king of 100 battles was almost out of life cards now. Even if they flattened the previous zones, they might not reach the king of 100 battles zone. His goal was the human sovereign reward. There were still 8 unclaimed rewards. As long as he got half of them, it didn't matter whether he was the king of 100 battles or not. Even the king of 100 battles might not get as many life cards as he did. Let's try our best. Yi Qinghan was indifferent. He turned and walked toward the 52nd zone. The 52nd zone was also flattened. There were only 3 masters left, and they still had 50,000 life cards. They were in a deadlock, and no one was willing to give up. Unexpectedly, 2 people who crossed zones appeared at the same time. Yi Qinghan crossed 7 zones, and Xia Ziluo crossed 47 zones. The 3 masters' hair stood on end. Without hesitation, they threw out their life cards and left the battlefield. With a stretch of his hand, Yi Qinghan took them away. Xia Ziluo didn't make a move. She had conquered more than 20 zones, and she had more than 1,000,000 life cards. Overall, she was in the top 3. No matter how many life cards she had, it was useless. In the end, she would have to fight in the king of 100 battles zone. Boom, 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 the 2 of them walked together into the 53rd zone. The parrot's eyes flashed, and it whispered, "There's treasure. It must be the human sovereign reward." Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed. He followed the parrot's instructions and walked toward a deep mountain. Xia Ziluo's eyes flashed. She knew that the parrot and Yi Qinghan wouldn't do anything without benefits. The only thing that could tempt them was the human sovereign reward. Thinking of this, the corners of her mouth rose slightly. Who wouldn't be tempted by the human sovereign reward? Boom! The iron chain shattered the mountain. Xia Ziluo followed behind. Her eyes were blurred, and her fingertips moved slightly. She was ready to fight for the human sovereign reward at any time. Yi Qinghan didn't stop her, and he couldn't stop her. If he fought with Xia Ziluo now, even if he gave it his all, it would probably end in a lose-lose situation. He might even be slightly weaker. In the depths of the mountain range, there was a valley that was isolated by a great formation. Inside the valley hung a terrifying yellow map, depicting a dark river that stretched for thousands of miles straight to hell. There were several boats on the river, which were exactly the same as the boats that Yi Qinghan had seen on the Dead Star. However, these Yin soldiers were even more powerful and lifelike, as if they wanted to kill their way out of the seal and into the human world. Just his aura alone was enough to crush an expert of the immortal sections. Those with weak Dao hearts would be scared to death. The Yellow Springs Hell's Map was an emperor weapon from the ancient times, personally forged by the Yellow Springs Emperor. Once the Hell's Map was activated, it could suppress evil and kill those of the same cultivation realm. Once it was activated, it would not be any weaker than a perfect boundary emperor. In fact, it might even be stronger than a great perfection boundary emperor. It was as if the great emperor himself had arrived. The Hell's Map had been sealed by the 9 dragons divine emperor and human emperor Shenyuan. Unless the great emperor himself came, no one could activate it. The Hell's Map could not activate itself. At this moment, its aura was restrained, and the mountain range was blocked. No one could discover it. An emperor weapon had quietly stayed here for hundreds of thousands of years, waiting for a fated person. Yi Qinghan used stellar transposition and shattered the void, appearing above the valley. His large hand shattered the great formation. This great formation was only a formation that isolated the aura of the Hell's map. It was useless, and anyone could break it. Boom! The formation shattered, and Yi Qinghan reached out to grab the Hell's map. Xia Ziluo quickly crushed the sky, distorting time and space, wanting to stop Yi Qinghan. Emperor descends. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan's aura rose, and his terrifying aura overflowed. He attacked with all his strength, and the large hand that covered the sky shattered the distorted void, once again grabbing at the Hell's map. Humph, too late. This thing is mine. Xia Ziluo used form displacement transposition and appeared beside the Hell's map. Her jade-like hand grasped a corner, and she was about to take the Hell's map away. However, she did not expect Yi Qinghan to be even faster, and he directly grabbed the center of the Hell's map. The two of them exerted their strength at the same time. The Hell's map emitted an eerie and terrifying aura. The ghost ship wanted to break through the confinement of time and space and descend here. The corrosive power suppressed their souls. Even if the Hell's map did not activate, it was not something that two immortal realm juniors could control. Even an invincible king could not. However, neither of them let go. Both of them wanted to control the Hell's map. Their auras burst forth and rushed into the clouds. Let go, and I'll give you the supreme treasure. Don't force me to attack. Xia Ziluo shouted in a low voice. If you let go, the Hell's map will be mine, and the supreme treasure rewarded by the human emperor will be yours. Yi Qinghan did not back down. A emperor weapon was not like anything else. No amount of supreme treasure could exchange for it. You already have the human emperor's sword. What else do you want? Xia Ziluo glared at Yi Qinghan. His big round eyes were like lanterns. There was no murderous intent, but the destructive power was not small. The human emperor's sword has its own will. It has awakened and will not listen to my orders at all. But the Hell's map is different. It is a supreme treasure with unparalleled offensive power. It is enough to help me prove my Tao. Yi Qinghan curled his lips. The two of them stared at each other, feeling uncomfortable all over. It was as if they were fighting over candy with a little girl. I was the one who found this supreme treasure. The parrot said weakly. You shut up. The two of them spoke at the same time. How could they let the parrot control the Hell's map? Yi Qinghan would not agree. Damn. You two are really like family. Do you want to get rid of me after I've outlived my usefulness? I'll break up with you too. I'll take the next supreme treasure myself. The parrot was furious. It obviously also wanted the Hell's map. With this item, it could run amok in the world. If anyone dared to stop it, it would immediately take out the Hell's map and send them to hell. The two of them glared fiercely at the parrot, but neither of them let go. The Hell's map was torn out of shape, and the Emperor's might was gradually activated. Yi Qinghan hurriedly moved closer to Xia Ziluo. Xia Ziluo was also worried about activating the Hell's map, so she also moved closer to Yi Qinghan. The two of them just happened to bump into each other. The two of them trembled. Xia Ziluo felt as if she had been blasphemed. Her jade-like hands grasped the sky, directly grabbing Yi Qinghan's neck. Yi Qinghan's hair stood on end. This girl could even distort space. If she grabbed his neck, even if he himself was here, she could still break his neck. He immediately pointed at Xia Ziluo's waist, and a surge of true essence rushed out, roaming through her limbs and bones. Woo-woo, Xia Ziluo clearly hadn't expected Yi Qinghan to use this move. Her entire body almost went limp, and her eyes widened. Although she was completely powerless, her left hand clenched the hell's map tightly, unwilling to let go. Her right hand was raised above her head, controlled by Yi Qinghan's large hand. She couldn't exert the slightest bit of strength. Their eyes met. Holy shit, this idiot is enlightened. The parrot was speechless. Looking at this strange posture, it couldn't help but grin. No wonder you used this move. It turns out you can't stop her weak little hand. Yi Qinghan's eyes widened as he stared at Xia Ziluo. In his heart, he wanted to kill the parrot 100 times, 100 times. This bastard actually dared to say that Xia Ziluo's little hand was weak and powerless. It could even crush the sky, let alone his own neck. If it was grabbed, even his soul wouldn't be able to escape. Xia Ziluo had never experienced this scene before. Her little hand had never been grabbed by anyone before. Now that her waist was touched and she was attacked by Jin Yuan, she was immediately stunned and at a loss. Yi Qinghan also didn't dare to move. At this time, Xia Ziluo was already on the verge of exploding with rage. If he moved, it would cause her to crazily counterattack. This woman couldn't be killed. After all, Xia Qiue was her brother. Xia Qintian also treated him well. If he killed her, he wouldn't be able to explain himself. If he wanted to kill her now, it would be the best opportunity. Once the two of them separated, Xia Ziluo would definitely be able to chase Yi Qinghan around the battle zone. After a long time, Xia Ziluo calmed down. Her eyes darted around. Seeing that Yi Qinghan didn't dare to move, she raised her right foot and fiercely stomped on Yi Qinghan's foot. Boom! With a loud boom, the ground cracked and the valley split into two. It was clear how much strength Xia Ziluo had used. This wasn't a battle of the body. Yi Qinghan's foot was also derived from his soul. This stomp was equivalent to stomping on his soul. Yi Qinghan felt the pain and let go of his hands. His figure flew backwards, his face twitching ferociously. He clenched his iron fists and resisted the urge to cry out. However, the twitching of his soul told Xia Ziluo that Yi Qinghan was definitely in heart-wrenching pain. Xia Ziluo put away the Netherworld Hell's map. She wiped her lips and angrily glared at Yi Qinghan. Her whole body trembled and she clenched her fists again. She angrily berated, "I completely misjudged you. You actually did such a despicable thing to a little girl." The corner of Yi Qinghan's mouth twitched. He slowly adapted to the piercing pain in his soul. He wished he could slap Xia Ziluo out of the space. She was completely taking advantage of him and yet she was still pretending to be innocent. "I discovered this Netherworld Hell's map first. You snatched it first, so I can do whatever I want," Yi Qinghan said angrily. "Treasures belong to those who are fated to obtain them. I obtained it, which means I'm fated to have it." Xia Ziluo glared at him unreasonably. "Fine, fine. You're fated to have it. Since you obtained the Netherworld Hell's map, then tell me, how do you want to make it up to me? What treasure will you use to make it up to me? I don't want anything lower than a 7th-grade medicinal pill," Yi Qinghan said coldly. "You touched me, so we're even." "There's no need to make it up to me," Xia Ziluo said, raising her head. "Fuck, a touch is worth tens of thousands of gold. Are you trying to scam me?" the parrot roared. It had discovered it on its own, so how could it not get any compensation? "I've never been touched by anyone else." Xia Ziluo immediately stretched her neck and shouted. "My master hasn't touched anyone else either," the parrot said hysterically. When it came to saint-level medicinal pills, there was no room for negotiation. Crack, Xia Ziluo clenched her fists and glared at the parrot. "What? You want to fight?" The parrot shrank back and shook its head, not daring to argue. Yi Qinghan, whoosh, 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 divine splendor covered the sky and earth as it descended upon the 53rd battle zone. The Xianyuan sword appeared again, its divine nature radiating in all directions. Its majesty was vast and mighty, shocking the 53rd battle zone. Congratulations on completing the 3rd human sovereign mission and obtaining the Netherworld Hell's map. Although it's been suppressed, it's still a quasi-emperor weapon. When you pass the tribulation and prove your Tao, it'll awaken and become a true emperor weapon to help you prove your Tao. The Xianyuan sword looked down at Xia Ziluo as if it were alive. Xia Ziluo bowed respectfully. She was no longer pestering endlessly like a little woman. The mission reward is the Xianyuan 13 sword styles, which I created when I was young. It's invincible, and no one at the same level can resist the 9th sword. The sword manual contains my will, and it's enough to make anyone reborn and become an almighty swordsman. After the Xianyuan sword finished speaking, it threw out a palm-sized brocade box from its internal space. Xia Ziluo put it away, and then the Xianyuan sword disappeared without a trace, as if it had never appeared. Xia Ziluo's eyes shone brightly. She grinned and said, "Brother Yi, you don't seem to be a swordsman, but a blade cultivator. The Xianyuan 13 sword styles are useless against you, right?" Chapter 281. Yi Qinghan raised his eyebrows. Hearing Xia Ziluo's sweet voice and the first time she called him Big Brother Yi, he knew she was up to no good. Sure enough, Xia Ziluo smiled a little embarrassedly, and said, "My brother and you are friends. Can I give something you don't need to my brother? He cultivates the way of the sword. You won't refuse, right?" The parrot trembled with anger. The promised compensation was gone, and now she wanted to steal the 13 sword styles of Xianyuan. This was intolerable. Yi Qinghan was speechless. Xia Qiue was still a friend after all. If he rejected her, it would be obvious that they were going to separate. I have no objections to letting Brother Xia cultivate it, but there are 2 sword experts in my sect. I hope. Yi Qinghan stared and said in a low voice. "No problem. Let's comprehend it together. We will definitely comprehend it together. I won't take advantage of others." Xia Ziluo promised. Yi Qinghan rolled his eyes. He realized that whoever came into contact with the parrot would have a face that was harder to break than an extreme emperor weapon. The parrot almost knelt down. How was this taking advantage of others? She was digging up their ancestors' graves. "Master, we can't go with her. That woman looks valiant, peerless and beautiful. But in reality, she's still a woman. We can't offend or provoke someone like her. Let her go first." The parrot was dispirited. It had finally found the reward of the 3rd human emperor's mission, but it was snatched away by someone else. It was furious, but there was nothing it could do about Xia Ziluo. Yi Qinghan also nodded. He also felt that going with Xia Ziluo was definitely not a good thing. The human emperor's reward was the absolute truth. So what if it was the king of 100 battles? It was best to walk on one's own path. "Sister Ziluo, look, you have to go for the underworld diagram and the 13 sword styles of Xianyuan. You should go first. I don't want to be the king of 100 battles, so I can't go with you. Besides, I don't have enough life tablets, so I will drag you down," Yi Qinghan said earnestly. "You are my brother's friend, so you are my brother. How can I not take care of you? I'll give you some of my life medallions. Follow me, and I'll protect you." Xia Ziluo looked at the parrot, her eyes glittering as she spoke in a righteous tone. Yi Qinghan and the parrot were speechless. Yi Qinghan said in all seriousness, "Actually, my talent isn't that great. It's impossible for me to prove my Tao. If I keep walking, I might just drop out of the training. I don't want to be a burden to you. You should leave first." Xia Ziluo pursed her lips and thought to herself, "His talent isn't good? Only a ghost would believe that if I followed him, I would steal his good fortune. This spirit-devouring godly hawk is a treasure for seeking treasures. If I follow him, I'll be able to find the human emperor, and the reward won't be any worse than the one the warlord of 100 battles would get. Today, I'll follow him, I can't leave. It doesn't matter. I'll follow you wherever you go. If you drop out, you can still give me these hundreds of thousands of life medallions. Maybe I can become the number one in the battle zone. Don't you think so? Xia Ziluo pretended not to know. The two of them looked as if they were old friends who had just reunited, reluctant to part. Yi Qinghan clenched his fists and stared at Xia Ziluo. Seeing her fearless expression, as if she was sure to win, he didn't want to waste any more time with her. He turned around and left directly. With the two of them working together, even Qitian Monkey King and Long Qionyang would have to give way to them. There were no peerless masters in the 53rd zone, so they pushed all the way to the 54th zone. Behind them, Jian Qinxue rampaged all the way from the 1st zone to the 50th zone. When he found that there was no one in these zones, he began to speed up and kept approaching Yi Qinghan and Xia Ziluo. Finally, in the 55th zone, the three of them gathered. Sparks flashed, and the two beauties were about to fight. Jian Qinshue's white robe was fluttering, pure and holy. Wherever she went, snow would fall and freeze people's hearts. Even if there was no murderous intent, Yi Qinghan felt cold all over when he got close to her. Even his soul's combat power was decreasing. Brother Qinghan, long time no see. Jian Qinxue pursed her lips and smiled. She couldn't help but lower her head. Her jade-like fingers tore the corner of her robe. Even if she had attained Tao, she wouldn't be strong in front of Yi Qinghan. That kind of submission was deeply ingrained in her. Yi Qinghan smiled slightly. He always felt guilty towards Jian Qinxue. She had always been by his side, but he didn't cultivate her. The hidden scarlet snow body was also not something he could discover. If it wasn't for the sudden eruption, she might have been following Kuang Zong silently and contributing for free. Jian Qinshue's hardships to reach this step were no less than Yi Qinghan's. Especially the blood-washing technique. That kind of pain was not something an ordinary person could bear, let alone a weak girl. Well, Qinshue, you've worked hard. Do you have enough life tablets? Yi Qinghan asked gently with a hoarse voice. It's okay. These zones have been wiped out by you. There's no one in the zone, so I can cross zones at will. Jian Qinshue raised her head slightly. The man couldn't resist her heavenly voice. Xia Ziluo curled her lips and was extremely angry. She found that Yi Qinghan was guarded against her and even competed with her for the treasure. If Jian Qinshue was in the same zone as him, he would probably give the netherworld hell map to her. Thinking of this, she became even angrier and felt uncomfortable. TSK, TSK, TSK. What a delicate little beauty. You really like weak girls. Xia Ziluo's jealousy soared. She looked at Jian Qinshue with disdain and her eyes were full of fighting spirit. That's right. My master likes soft and weak women. Women should be thin-skinned and weak. Your skin is so thick and your strength is so tyrannical. Which man would dare to want you? The parrot ridiculed lazily. You're courting death. Xia Ziluo scolded coldly. Look, you're threatening me without saying anything. I'm doing this for your own good. Otherwise, in the future, if your future husband talks back, will you punch him down and then point at him and say, you're courting death? The parrot curled its lips and mocked. Xia Ziluo clenched her fists. She was a little short of breath and her breasts were undulating. Jian Qinshue pursed her lips and smiled. She didn't hide it at all. Yi Qinghan imagined that scene and couldn't help but laugh. The haze of the netherworld hell map being stolen was swept away. When Xia Ziluo saw that the two of them were mocking her, she immediately flew into a rage out of humiliation. She looked at the two of them coldly and sneered. I'd like to see how much you can sacrifice for each other. Boom! Xia Ziluo soared into the sky and swept her way. She forcefully defeated everyone in the battle zone and took all the life cards. Aren't you two in love? I don't think you two have enough life cards. How are you going to cross the battle zone side by side? Maybe you two will fight to prove your Tao. Xia Ziluo laughed proudly as she defeated 10 battle zones in a row. She guessed right. Yi Qinghan only had enough life cards to enter the 55th battle zone, while Jian Qinxue only had 500,000 life cards. Jian Qinxue had crossed more than 50 battle zones and had used up all her life cards. If she wanted to enter the 56th battle zone, she had to kick Yi Qinghan out. When women were jealous, there was really no reason to explain. However, Yi Qinghan and Jian Qinxue didn't think of this. Otherwise, they wouldn't have allowed Xia Ziluo to do this. However, in the 45th battle zone, Yi Qinghan had already completed the 10 War Kings mission and the extension mission of the Human Sovereign mission. Sure enough, when the Xian Yuan sword appeared for the 4th time, the divine light shrouded Yi Qinghan. It gave him the secret technique of the origin of fire, the prairie fire technique. When he mastered it, he could burn a region with a wave of his hand. After obtaining the prairie fire technique, Yi Qinghan found that there was no one left in the 55th battle zone. Everyone had been eliminated by Xia Ziluo. If they wanted to cross over, they had to enter the 56th battle zone without a second person. Yi Qinghan frowned. He didn't expect Xia Ziluo to be so mischievous. Brother Qinghan, do you not have enough life cards? Jian Qinxue frowned slightly and asked in a low voice. Yes, do you have enough life cards to cross over? Yi Qinghan nodded and asked. Jian Qinxue smiled bitterly and shook her head. With a total of 500,000 life cards, she had crossed more than 50 battle zones. If she hadn't eliminated all the people in the battle zones, she wouldn't have been able to reach this step. This little girl, how dare she? I was wondering why she left so quickly. It turns out that she wanted me and you to kill each other. Yi Qinghan clenched his fists and was a little angry. Forget it, I won't cross over. This life card is yours. You can complete the task of King of 100 Battles. Jian Qinxue handed over her life card without hesitation. Yi Qinghan immediately stopped her. Jian Qinxue was the first to cross over and obtained the inheritance of the human sovereign. If she gave up now, she would be really stupid. Don't give up such a great opportunity. Not everyone has the opportunity to obtain the inheritance of the human sovereign. Even if I take your life card, I don't have a 30% chance of becoming the king of 100 battles. It's best for you to cross over. Take the parrot and get all the rewards of the human sovereign's task. With the rewards of the human sovereign's task, it's equal to my experience. Yi Qinghan immediately said in a deep voice. Brother Qinghan, this. Jian Qinxue was shocked. She had been following Yi Qinghan since she was a child. Naturally, she knew that Yi Qinghan's ambition was to prove his Tao. She did not expect that he would be willing to give up the opportunity to experience for her. A warm current flowed through her heart and her eyes turned red. She wanted to help Yi Qinghan even more. There's no need to say more. I've already obtained 2 rewards of the human sovereign's task and 1 reward of extending the human sovereign. These things are enough for me to comprehend and cultivate for a while. You have to seize this opportunity. If you want to prove your Tao, you can't lose the inheritance of the human sovereign. Don't be willful. Yi Qinghan said in a deep voice. Divine bird, follow Qinxue and protect her. Help her enter the area of King of 100 Battles. If she is tricked by you, don't come out of the endless space. Yi Qinghan said in a cold voice, don't worry. When you protect Qinxue out of the endless space, I promise to give you a dozen divine elixir pills above the 7th grade. The parrot's eyes suddenly lit up and promised solemnly, don't worry. Even if Long Qiong and Yang Zhan come, I can get them out of here. Yi Qinghan handed over his life card and looked at Jian Qinxue with a smile. His figure gradually disappeared. Jian Qinshue's nose twitched. Thinking of the years when she followed Yi Qinghan silently, she finally moved this stone. Master, remember my divine elixir pills. I'll continue to go deeper. I promise to get you some rewards of the human sovereign's task. The parrot was afraid that Yi Qinghan did not care about it, so it reminded him loudly. Chapter 282. In the endless universe, everyone was shocked and they saw Yi Qinghan, who was ranked 20th, suddenly disappear. Why was Yi Qinghan eliminated? Jian Qinxue was in the same battle zone as him. Did the insane sect kill each other? The 10,000 races were overjoyed. Yi Qinghan was eliminated, which was definitely a pleasant surprise. They were even happier than when some of the stronger emperors were eliminated. This was because Yi Qinghan was always shrouded in fog, and no one could see through him. Miracles continued to happen in his hands. If he continued to stay in the space, who knew how many people would be eliminated? Qin Heng frowned and clenched his fists. He was very dissatisfied. The person chosen by the Guardian Sword was actually eliminated after obtaining 10 Battle Kings. Wasn't this a joke for the 10,000 races? Gotcha, Yi Qinghan's body shook and completely merged. His soul was no longer suppressed and became a first-layer immortal. However, his physical body was still at the Great Martial Honorable Realm. However, he had 2 drops of Azure Dragon Blood Essence and a 7th-grade Fire Elemental Origin. He could even refine his physical body to the 2nd-layer immortal. Yi Qinghan, what happened? Why were you eliminated? Qin Heng asked in a deep voice. We don't have enough life tokens. Between me and Qinxue, one of us will have to be eliminated. She is the first to cross over and has the inheritance of the Renhuang. My withdrawal is the best choice. Yi Qinghan bowed slightly and replied seriously. Sui Xian was stunned and nodded slightly. He was very satisfied that Yi Qinghan was willing to give up on him to help Jian Qinxue. However, he still had some doubts. You could have left your life token behind and waited for the next person to cross over. There is not enough time. I don't have time to waste waiting in the space. Senior, I know what I am doing. Yi Qinghan was impatient. He wanted to return to the killing divine realm and refine his physical body so that his physical body could catch up. Yi Qinghan, hand over your parrot. The Qilin tiger roared. It had been tricked half to death by the parrot and had even wasted its race's only grade 8 life-saving divine pill. Only then had it recovered its strength. The moment it saw Yi Qinghan, it immediately pounced on him. If it weren't for the fact that the quasi-emperors were holding it back, it would have definitely started a fight. The corners of Yi Qinghan's mouth curled up. Thinking about how the Qilin tiger had been tricked by the parrot, he laughed and said mockingly, Qilin tiger, what the parrot did to you is what I did to you. If you want revenge, come at me. The coronation battle hasn't officially started yet. I'll be waiting for you there. Fuck. Yi Qinghan, hand over that bitch bird. I've been tricked by it. Let it take responsibility. This is the first time I've been played like this. Let the parrot come out. I'll suppress it with one hand. At this moment, the human race, Wan race, and dozens of experts who had been tricked by the parrot all rushed up and surrounded Yi Qinghan tightly. Their killing intent was overflowing. Yi Qinghan's aura turned cold and a cold light flashed. He scanned the experts with a disdainful smile and killing intent. He said coldly, I've said it before. If you want to take revenge on the parrot, come at me. I'm alone. If you want to suppress the parrot, say it in front of me. Everyone's aura stagnated. Yi Qinghan's cold gaze made their hair stand on end. They all retreated and faced each other from a distance. A bunch of trash. I can only say that I'm stupid for being used by a bird. Now you dare to clamor in front of me? Revenge? Fine. I'll be waiting for you at the coronation battle. After Yi Qinghan finished speaking, he turned around and rushed towards the ancient massacre god. Everyone's killing intent was biting cold as they stared coldly at Yi Qinghan's back. They clenched their iron fists, especially the Qilin tiger. His eyes were ferocious and almost popped out. His hatred for the Kuang Zone had already condensed to the point of materialization. When Yi Qinghan arrived at the ancient massacre god, he found that most of the ancient massacre god's battle strength had awakened and was gathering. It seemed like there was a special mission. Most of these people were kings of the same realm. Their battle strength was extraordinary, and most of them were above the 5th layer of the Immortal Gate realm. There were at least 50,000 of them, enough to form a powerful army. Yi Qinghan didn't care about this. He returned to the ancient massacre god and took the 7th grade Saint Pill, the blood creation pill. He directly returned to the massacre god world and touched the barrier, alarming Di Longtian. Di Longtian opened the barrier and saw that it was Yi Qinghan. He was immediately overjoyed and rushed forward, shouting, "Brother, why didn't royal sister come back? Your royal sister is still training. How's your cultivation going?" Yi Qinghan looked at Di Longtian and found that he had changed a lot. He didn't look like a 6-year-old at all, but more like a 10-year-old. He had grown a lot taller, and the divine dragon mark on his body seemed to be alive. It could explode at any time and destroy mountains, rivers, sun, and moon. Yi Qinghan couldn't help nodding slightly. He decided to nurture Di Longtian for a period of time so that he could fight independently. I've cultivated many divine abilities and secret techniques. My cultivation has also reached the Great Martial Saint realm. At most, I'll be able to reach the Immortal Gate realm in half a year, said Di Longtian excitedly. Continue cultivating. When you reach the Immortal Gate realm, I'll take you to the coronation battle. Yi Qinghan patted Di Longtian's shoulder and rushed into the main hall. He sat cross-legged on the ground and took out a drop of 8th grade Azure Dragon blood essence. He put the blood creation pill in his mouth and used his origin to directly tear his body apart and release all the blood. The origin of wood was the last thread of life. The entire main hall was dyed red by the blood essence. Yi Qinghan's body was shriveled and lifeless. He then swallowed the 8th grade Azure Dragon blood essence into his stomach and drove the blood creation pill to his limbs and bones. The blood creation system in his body recovered. The Azure Dragon arm erupted and spread throughout his body. His entire body shone with a golden light. Kacha, Yi Qinghan's golden bones crackled and his body cracked. The blood in his veins was all of the 8th grade Azure Dragon blood. 1 drop became 10 drops, 10 drops became 100 drops, and finally, it became a river that contained hundreds of rivers. It surged and roared in his body. Boom boom boom, there was more and more blood. His body used the Azure Dragon arm as a base and crazily expanded outwards. Large golden scales grew on his arm and then spread to his chest, neck, abdomen, lower limbs. Time passed as fast as a sword. Yi Qinghan's body was covered in blood. His body was not strong enough to withstand the 8th grade Azure Dragon blood essence. Even the origin of metal could not stop the dragon blood from tearing his body. Yi Qinghan's soul had crossed 10 districts in the space and was abnormally strong. That was why he could withstand such intense pain. Otherwise, he would have fainted long ago. At this moment, his sweat and flesh were intertwined. He was bathed in a river of blood. His face was ferocious and his fingers dug into his flesh. His eyes were shining with a terrifying light that could scare people to death. The blood creation pill was still in effect. The dragon blood was rich and the dragon's aura was mighty. Blood rushed out of the main hall and alarmed some of the crazy sect disciples. The origin of metal was operating crazily and the wood element was constantly repairing his body. His body was being refined in the tearing and repairing process. He became incomparably strong and quickly rushed to the peak of the Grandmaster realm. His bones broke and grew again. The cycle repeated. He was like a top-grade immortal Gate Dao soldier, indestructible. And in the boundless space, Jian Qinxue was excited. Yi Qinghan had finally responded to her. It meant that he really loved her. Otherwise, he would not give up the battle for her. Thinking of this, she was very angry and dissatisfied with Xia Ziluo. Humph. Xia Ziluo, you've made me angry. Don't let me catch up with you. Otherwise, I'll kick you out. Jian Qinxue sped up. The iron chain on her body was more than 600 meters long, which meant that she had crossed more than 60 districts. However, Xia Ziluo's speed was especially fast. She had already started to run towards the King of 100 Battles area. Yang Zhan, Long Qiong, and the others had crossed more than 90 districts and would soon enter the central King of 100 Battles area. The crazy sect had crossed more than 20 districts from the Ninefold Realm. In the end, they met Yang Zhan. Yang Zhan did not kill them but still eliminated them. Lin Aoqiong led Yi Mengshi and crossed more than 70 districts. Gu Qingyu and Lin Wuqian joined forces and fought their way to 80 districts. Unfortunately, they did not have enough life tokens. In order to repay their kindness, Lin Wuqian threw out his life token. Gu Qingyu did not even have the chance to stop him. Feng Wuxia walked alone in the battle zone. He did not get many life tokens. Every time, he would die in the battle zone before he could cross over. His aura became ethereal, like the wind. He was there but could not be seen clearly. Shi Gu had finally triggered a human sovereign mission. Perhaps it was the will of the heavens, or perhaps he was really lucky. He had actually obtained the only boundary emperor weapon in history, the pseudo-extreme Dao brick. Without any suppression, the emperor's aura was imprisoned by the human sovereign. After he obtained it, it completely exploded, shocking countless districts. A pseudo-extreme Dao emperor weapon. It's only half a step away from becoming an extreme Dao emperor weapon. It's Shi Gu from the human race who obtained it. It's the crazy sect again. The boundary emperors were shocked. The extreme Dao Brick's emperor's aura was stronger than any other boundary emperor weapon. However, it was still not at the level of a true extreme Dao emperor weapon. If it was given to a Dao realm cultivator of the human race's holy land to nourish it with the blood of a boundary emperor, it would become a true great emperor weapon in 5,000 years. There were only a few extreme Dao emperor weapons in the world. The human sovereign's guardian sword, the Tianwu Great Emperor's life extreme Dao battle sword in the ancient space. The Zhan family had an extreme Dao battle god spear that came from the ancient man inheritance. Its history was even longer than the guardian sword. Other than these four extreme Dao divine weapons, there were no other great emperor weapons in the world. Now that a pseudo-extreme Dao emperor weapon had appeared, it was imaginable that many people were excited. Qin Hengyan's Wuxian looked solemn. Shi Gu was from the crazy sect and the sect leader of the crazy sect had the human sovereign's guardian sword. That meant that he was on the ancient man massacre god side. Since Shi Gu obtained the pseudo-extreme Dao emperor weapon, it meant that the ancient man massacre god had obtained the pseudo-extreme Dao emperor weapon. Obviously, he wouldn't allow others to compete for the extreme Dao brick. While everyone was still in shock, Gu Qingyu disappeared from the boundless space. He wasn't eliminated but he had disappeared just like when Yi Qinghan disappeared. He had triggered the human sovereign's mission. Gu Qingyu walked alone in the mountains. His soul seemed to be guided by something. He didn't need to look for the mission reward. His soul walked towards the mission location on its own. A lifetime of one sword and one brother, lonely heart and lonely sword. What a pure sword, without any impurities, a voice rang out in Gu Qingyu's sea of consciousness, causing his eyes to pierce through the void, allowing him to see the essence of this boundless space. Everything in front of him was nothing but an illusion. This boundless space didn't exist, there were only two wills that towered above the heavens. The wills of the 9 dragons great emperor and human sovereign Xian Yuan were inside the extreme Tao emperor weapon, looking down on all living things. Chapter 283. There seemed to be only 3 wills in the endless space, the lonely sword path, the 9 dragons emperor's will, and the human emperor Xian Yuan's will. The cold and lonely will faced the 2 emperors' wills and bowed slightly. Junior Gu Qingyu greets the 2 emperors. You are the sword path. This is one of the best sword path foundations I have ever seen. Pure, without any impurities. You can inherit my legacy. The Xian Yuan sword shook, and the hoarse voice was filled with emperor's might. Human Emperor Xian Yuan had crossed through endless history and arrived at the era of emperor's fall. Congratulations, Xian Yuan. You finally have a successor. Unfortunately, there is no one to inherit my 9 dragons path. The 9 dragons emperors will dimmed. The 9 dragons path involved all the great Tao origin and laws. It was difficult to understand. He had spent his entire life but had not cultivated it to greater completion. Otherwise, immortality would have been easy. Gu Qingyu's body shook. Human Emperor Xian Yuan wanted to take him as a disciple. The divine light of the Xian Yuan sword poured into the world, and a mighty river spread into the endless universe. Gu Qingyu, if you want to become my disciple, you still need to be tested. I have chosen 3 people in the endless space, Lin Aoqiong, Xia Qiue, and you. I will teach you a set of sword techniques. Whoever uses the shortest amount of time, the purer the sword path, and the stronger the power, I will take that person as my disciple. Whoosh, A will shot out from the Xian Yuan sword and rushed into Gu Qingyu's sea of consciousness. Divine Sword Path Technique, a mid-tier 8th grade martial technique. There are 3 moves in total. The first move, Sword Heart Sky. The second move, 10,000 Swords Reveal Sword Path. The third move, Divine Sword God Slaying. The 3 of you have cultivated the same secret technique. I won't be biased towards any of you. I won't give you any hints. It's all up to you to comprehend. Different people comprehend different sword daos. Use the sword in your hand to tell me that you meet my requirements. Whoosh! Gu Qingyu's soul moved, and he disappeared from the other space and appeared in the endless space. The mental cultivation method of the Divine Sword Path technique appeared in his sea of consciousness, and the 3 sword moves were incomparably sharp. At the same time, Xia Qiue and Lin Aoqiong also received the Divine Sword Path technique. Their auras were monstrous, and they wanted to kill their way through the clouds, destroy all enemies, and achieve glory. In an era, only one great monarch could be born. The heavenly Tao was heartless, and so were the great monarchs. If one wanted to prove their Tao, their heart must be free of all distracting thoughts. Only one of the 3 could be chosen. The battle was bound to be brutal. Everyone wanted to get the inheritance of human Emperor Xianyuan. This was no ordinary inheritance. It might be even more terrifying than the inheritance of a great emperor. Since the ancient times, there were no more than 5 mortal kings. Many of them could be crowned as emperors, but not many dared to call themselves mortal kings and were called mortal kings. Gu Qingyu, Xia Qiue, and Lin Aoqiong had all disappeared after obtaining the godly sword Dao skills. They didn't fight immediately, but chose to hide and cultivate the godly sword Dao skills. No one knew if they would become the king of 100 battles after coming out of seclusion and kill the imperial princes. Yi Qinghan did not know that their competition had reached its climax. He continued to cultivate his corporeal body in peace. Now that his corporeal body had broken through to the peak of the first tier of the Immortal Gate, even the Immortal Gate Dao weapon could not break through his most basic defense. Once the dragon blood boiled and dragon scales appeared, the crown prince would not be able to break through his defense even with the Immortal Gate Dao weapon. Gu Gu Gu, boiling dragon blood flowed out from the azure dragon arm and gathered in his body. His blood vessels expanded and could break through his corporeal body at any time. His corporeal body still had room for improvement. Yi Qinghan was calm. He clenched his iron fist and blue veins popped out all over his body. His corporeal body was broken again. The origin of metal, wood, and water worked at the same time to restore his corporeal body. He didn't know how long this process lasted. The essence blood in the hall had already dried up. With just the origin of metal and wood, he could no longer refine his corporeal body. Yi Qinghan summoned the 7th grade origin of fire, the 6th true fire, from his Qianquan ring and opened the brocade box. The brocade box was enveloped by the Emperor's aura array. The 6th true fire could not burn it. The origin of fire was almost transparent. But once the brocade box was opened, the temperature of the entire hall rose as if it was going to burn everything. Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed. If he could control the 6th true fire, his heavy frenzied saber could be upgraded again. It would become a 7th grade heavy frenzied saber that was not inferior to an ordinary divine martial Dao weapon. Boom! Yi Qinghan's hands gathered a large amount of the origin of metal. They shone with golden light and grabbed at the origin of fire. Even with the protection of the origin of metal, the bone-eroding pain caused Yi Qinghan's face to contort. He roared and rushed out of the hall, shocking everyone. Ah! Kacha, his corporeal body was being burned. His bones were turning soft rapidly. Even the azure dragon bone could not withstand the close burning of the 6th true fire. Roar! Yi Qinghan's voice changed. It was extremely hoarse as he roared. He endured the incomparable pain and forcefully grasped the origin of fire. He forcefully suppressed it within his body. The origin of fire immediately started to tear his corporeal body apart and ignited his dragon blood. Yi Qinghan was bathed in the nameless transparent fire. The bone-eroding pain that came from his body gave him a splitting headache. The roars that came from the hall made the god-slaying eagle and the other experts' hearts turn cold. Yi Qinghan's willpower was so terrifying. How much pain did he have to endure for him to roar like this? No one could understand Yi Qinghan's pain. His corporeal body was protected by the origin of wood. As the origin of fire tore apart, it repaired itself. This cycle repeated until the origin of fire could no longer tear apart his body. Suppress. Yi Qinghan mobilized the origin of metal in his body, wanting to suppress the origin of fire. He could not allow it to wreak havoc anymore. Otherwise, his soul would not be able to withstand such pain. Hiss hiss hiss, true gold did not fear being refined by fire. But now, the origin of metal had been burned out of shape. Once the fist-sized 7th grade origin of fire erupted, the entire ancient massacre god would be burned into nothingness. His sweat evaporated. His entire body was bathed in a river of blood and a sea of fire. The azure dragon blood essence became increasingly condensed. It actually advanced towards the middle of the 8th grade on its own. The azure dragon bones became a golden color, just like real dragon bones. Ga, Yi Qinghan gritted his teeth so hard that his soul was about to faint. His willpower was firm, and he had no regrets even if he died. In order to advance, in order to become stronger, Yi Qinghan was a madman. No one could stop his willpower. The origin of fire seemed to have its own will and soul. It wanted to kill Yi Qinghan and escape into the heavens. It constantly rushed towards Yi Qinghan's organs. The origin of metal could only suppress its speed, but it could not forcefully suppress it. Whine. The 10,000 Buddha's pagoda protecting Yi Qinghan's golden body suddenly erupted, protecting his organs and preserving Yi Qinghan's last hope of survival. Water origin, suppress. Emperor descends from the heavens. Suppress. 9 heavens tyrant dragon art, combine 3 moves into 1. Suppress for me. Yi Qinghan was like a madman. He used the little person in his sea of consciousness to suppress the origin of fire. If it did not submit, then it would be completely destroyed. Everything had its counter. The origin of metal temporarily sealed the origin of fire, while the origin of water countered the origin of fire. This allowed Yi Qinghan to instantly gain the upper hand and suppress the origin of fire, forcing it to retreat again and again. The little person in his sea of consciousness rushed out of his sea of consciousness and constantly used a terrifying secret technique to attack the origin of fire. It contained the will of a great emperor, the aura of an emperor, and the aura of the heavenly Tao. The origin of all techniques did not dare to disobey. The origin of fire's resistance and tyrannical aura immediately decreased by a lot. Yi Qinghan's entire body turned golden. He contained a Buddha-like nature and was extremely majestic. The calm heart mantra allowed Yi Qinghan to maintain his consciousness. His willpower prevented him from fainting. Once he fainted, the origin of fire would definitely counterattack. At that time, the flames would burn the heavens. Even a boundary emperor might not be able to extinguish the flames. Gradually, the origin of fire became weaker. Yi Qinghan took the opportunity to use a large amount of dark elements to attack the origin of fire. He wanted to use the corrosive nature of the dark elements to weaken the origin of fire's power again. Sure enough, the origin of fire became dim and lightless when it encountered the dark elements. It gradually submitted. Together with the dragon blood, it was completely suppressed and subdued by Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan's pupils contracted. The intense pain made him unable to endure any longer. He directly fainted, allowing the origin of his Tao body to strengthen and transform his physical body. The azure dragon body was officially formed. The current Yi Qinghan was no longer limited to the azure dragon arm. Moreover, its grade was even higher. If he could obtain the true origin of water and earth, his azure dragon body would definitely be able to advance to the middle of the 8th grade. The sound in the main hall dissipated. The deathly silence made Di Longtian and the others hesitate. They wanted to go in and take a look, but they were afraid of disturbing Yi Qinghan's cultivation. Master is fine. His soul is extremely stable now. Everyone, please calm down. The god-slaying eagle that had transformed into a burly man was incomparably majestic. He was very tall and sturdy. After several months of bitter cultivation, he had completely transformed. His wife had also brought the god-slaying eagle race to supreme glory. Muyu Tianchen and Nangong Qingyue retreated from the stone tablet. The tablet dissipated and the sun-moon yin-yang art was completely comprehended. Nangong Qingyue lost some of the immaturity of a girl and gained some of the charm of a woman. Her aura was faintly discernible and she had become abnormally powerful. Muyu Tianchen's eyes were deep like boundless stars. The great Tao of Yang attached itself to his golden body. It was extremely attractive to female cultivators. The two of them leaned against each other. Yin and Yang alternated, connecting the sun and moon. Even if they weren't cultivating, their cultivation was rapidly increasing. The sun-moon yin-yang art was truly terrifying. Unfortunately, the flaw was also fatal. If one cultivated this secret art, they might not have a successor. You all can cultivate in peace. You won't have a chance to temper yourself in the endless space, but you must seize this opportunity in the king bestowment battle. If you can't seize this opportunity, then you can only go to the eternal battlefield to search for opportunities. Muyu Tianchen looked at the many young disciples and said in a low voice. Martial uncle, why don't you enter the main hall to see master? I really miss him. Tai Hua was still that foolish child without any signs of growth. No matter how many treasures were given to him, he wouldn't be able to open his Qi Si and become a cultivator. At this moment, he looked up at Muyu Tianchen and softly said. No one knew that Tai Hua was a great emperor, but no one discriminated against him. They treated him like a child and loved him like a younger brother. Muyu Tianchen nodded slightly and walked into the main hall. He pushed open the door and looked at the congealed blood essence and the unconscious Yi Qinghan. He couldn't help but frown. What did he do? At this moment, Yi Qinghan's sea of consciousness was dark without any light. Even the stars in his sea of consciousness were dim. His sea of consciousness was infinitely expanded. The sea of bitterness was vast and boundless. On the other side of the chaotic world, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. Rain poured down on the stars in his sea of consciousness as if they were about to give birth to life. Chapter 284. Yi Qinghan's body exuded boundless vitality, telling Mu Yu Tianchen that he was still alive. The temperature in the hall was still very high. Yi Qinghan's red skin seemed to have been baked by a soldering iron. It was slowly cooling down, becoming so soft that it could be broken with a flick of a finger. However, when one really touched it, one would discover that ordinary immortal sect weapons couldn't even break through a bit of his skin. Mu Yu Tianchen didn't disturb Yi Qinghan. With a flick of his finger, he sent the power of yin and yang into Yi Qinghan's body, taking the initiative to heal his internal injuries. Then, he left the hall. With the help of the power of yin and yang, Yi Qinghan's injuries quickly healed. With a slight movement of his finger, his eyes opened. Golden light pierced through the shackles and saw through the origin of all things. His originally handsome face became incomparably vigorous, showing signs of turning into a mortal. When a demon reached the pinnacle, it would become immortal. Russell, Yi Qinghan stood up. His immortal sect robe was covered in blood. With a twist of his finger, Yi Qinghan burned the robe. His entire body was bathed in fire, purifying everything. Then, the origin of water descended. After cleansing himself, he changed into a new set of clothes and stepped out of the hall. A gentle breeze blew by, his temperament was captivating. "Big brother, you've come out." Di Longtian was overjoyed. It hadn't been long since they last met, but his battle strength had increased by 30%. Yi Qinghan faintly smiled. Looking at the results of everyone's bitter cultivation, he was very satisfied. He took out the last drop of mid-8th grade Azure Dragon Essence blood and used a large amount of liquid spirit chi to neutralize it. Then, he gave it to Di Longtian. "Distribute it. 1 cup per person is enough. Don't be greedy. Otherwise, if your body isn't strong enough, it will easily explode and you will die." The Azure Dragon Essence blood had boundless power. Even if 1 drop was neutralized into a large bucket, it was still enough to benefit everyone endlessly. Di Longtian divided the wine into 1 cup each. Mu Yu Tianchen and Nangong Qingyue each took half a barrel. The remaining half was all swallowed by Di Longtian. Everyone sat down and began to bitterly cultivate their bodies. Their cultivation improved by leaps and bounds. Yi Qinghan took out the prairie fire technique and cultivated bitterly for more than half a month. He was still training in the endless space outside. After thinking for a moment, he took the human emperor's guardian sword and walked into the ancient massacre god. He mobilized a large number of people and began to collect 7th grade and 8th grade saint-level medicinal herbs. Yi Qinghan could not let him down. Otherwise, it would definitely betray him in the future. Its ability to trick people was not small. Although Yi Qinghan had the contract in his hands, he did not dare to underestimate it. Yi Qinghan arrived outside the Imperial Abyss City. Looking at the endless space, he found that there were still many people from the insane sect in the battle zone. Emperor Yi, Xia Ziluo, and Jian Qinxue had all entered the King of 100 Battles battle zone. The 3 supreme beauties were tit for tat, but they did not go too far. After all, there were many experts from the myriad races who had entered the King of 100 Battles battle zone. Gu Qingyu, Xia Qiue, and Lin Aoqiong came out of seclusion. Their sword auras were like rainbows, and their golden bodies were like divine swords. They could break through the clouds and enter the King of 100 Battles battle zone. In the end, Huang Tian had to withdraw from the King of Hundred Battles battle zone because of his realm. Otherwise, he would die in the chaotic battle. Shi Ge carried the big brick and swept through everything. Whoever dared to look at him, he directly said, "What are you looking at?" In the end, the imperial prince did not want to confront this hothead and pretended not to hear him. Feng Wuxia was the one with the least number of life jade, but he was still able to enter the King of 100 Battles zone. Everyone was shocked. They didn't expect that 5 or 6 people from the insane sect would be able to enter the King of 100 Battles zone. Long Qiong, Yang Zhan, and the others did not know that Yi Qinghan was not the only one who had the battle power of the King of 100 Battles battle zone. Mu Yu, Tianchen, and Nangong Qingyue, who did not participate in the battle, also had the battle power of the King of 100 Battles battle zone. They were not inferior to them. As for Si Wuxia, who did not reach the King of 100 Battles battle zone, he had been taken away by the 9 Dragons Emperor's will. Nangong Xiaobei crossed the 80 battle zones. His realm and battle power were weaker than those of the same realm, so he had no choice but to stop training. However, with this transformation, when he returned to the Killing God realm, there would be terrifying room for improvement. After returning to the Endless Universe, Nangong Xiaobei and Lin Wutian found Yi Qinghan. They did not feel guilty. They had done their best. Yi Qinghan nodded slightly. The souls of these 2 people had broken through the 3rd to 4th layer of the Immortal Gate. As long as their bodies were perfect, they would be invincible in the same realm. They would be unstoppable when they were crowned king. Seniors and fellow Taoists, this you would like to purchase some 7th or even 8th grade heavenly treasures. Medicinal herbs take priority, followed by blood essence. Is there anyone who would like to sell them? This Yi guarantees a fair price. Yi Qinghan's low voice broke the silence as he arrived at the central area. Most of the 7th grade and above treasures were in the hands of the myriad races. Their alchemy skills were not strong. The herbs in their territory were thousands or even tens of thousands of years old. The grade was very high. Even the ancient Killing God did not have these herbs. Some of the stronger races could negotiate with the human race through special means to obtain pills and even cultivate alchemists. However, most of the weaker races did not even have a quasi-emperor. The human race did not care about them at all. They had accumulated 7th grade and 8th grade sacred herbs in their hands and had to sell them to the stronger races at a low price. The Red Pine race, the Snow Fox race, the eyes of countless weak pseudo-emperors lit up. This was an opportunity. In the past, when they wanted to trade 7th grade and 8th grade sacred herbs with the human race, the price was always extremely low. There was not much profit to speak of. If they could negotiate with Yi Qinghan, their race would not need to be bullied and controlled by the stronger races in the future. Fellow Taoist Yi, I have many 7th grade sacred herbs. Are you interested, fellow Taoist Yi? I also have 8th grade sacred herbs. Cooperate with my Red Pine race. We don't ask for much. Our Snow Fox race is also willing to cooperate with you. Some of the pseudo-emperors and even divine martial experts of the weaker races spoke up. Their eyes flashed as they hoped that Yi Qinghan would take a fancy to the herbs in their race. Yi Qinghan smiled. It seemed that these weak races were not as united as before. They were oppressed by the truly strong races and would easily betray them. Fellow Taoists and seniors, if you want to sell sacred herbs, you might as well come to the city with me. We can sit down and talk. The price can be negotiated. Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed. The disciples of the arrogant sect lacked 7th grade and 8th grade life-saving pills the most. If they wanted to enter the eternal battlefield, they needed a large number of life-saving pills. Otherwise, it would be a huge loss if even one of them died. If they could cooperate with these weak races, they would definitely have an endless supply of sacred herbs in the later stages. The powerful experts of the 10,000 races frowned. They were somewhat dissatisfied with Yi Qinghan's actions. The 7th grade and 8th grade sacred herbs were monopolized by the true Tao realm holy lands of the human race, the 12 Saint Royal clans, and the royal families of the 10,000 races. Yi Qing Han wanted to forcefully break through the food chain and take a share of the pie. Naturally, he would offend many people. Yi Qing Han did not care. For the sake of the arrogant sect's rise, so what if he offended others? With the guardian sword in hand and the ancient killing god on his side, the human race would not oppose him. As for the attitude of the 10,000 races, it had nothing to do with him. Yi Qing Han turned and left. At least a dozen experts of the 10,000 races followed him. 80% of them were false emperors and the remaining 20% were divine martial experts. The strongest experts of a race were either false emperors or divine martial experts. From this, one could see their status among the 10,000 races. Standing outside the city walls, Yi Qing Han looked at the many experts of the 10,000 races with excited expressions. They seemed to be looking forward to this transaction. Perhaps he could pull these people over to his side. As long as he was willing to train them, there would be no disloyal disciples. As long as a race existed, they would be recognized by the heavens and earth. If they did not grow into a supreme being, that was because they had no resources, no alchemists, and no top-grade immortal sect Tao soldiers. The strength of those at the same level did not only depend on one's own combat strength, but also martial skills and weapons. These races lacked these things, and Yi Qing Han could create them himself. With the fire source, wood source, and metal source, what weapon could he not create? It was easy to create 7th grade elixirs, but 8th grade elixirs were very difficult. Yi Qing Han placed his hands behind his back and said in a low voice, "Everyone, take out your materials. How do you want to trade? Give me a price. If I can agree, I will not hesitate." Swish. The group of people took out countless heavenly treasures. The most inferior materials were 6th grade elixirs. Young Master Yi, the Red Pine race is willing to provide the materials. As long as you are willing to sell a portion of these elixirs to us at a price lower than the market price, we will be extremely grateful. The Snow Fox race also thinks the same. We hope young Master will agree. We can do the same. As long as young Master Yi is willing to sell, we will pay a little more. The experts were excited. Elixirs of 7th grade and above were monopolized by the powerful races. Even if there were experts who returned to their ancestral roots, they would not be able to achieve supreme glory. They were too lacking in precious elixirs. They were willing to provide the materials for free and only asked for a price lower than the market price. This showed how much they desired the elixirs of 7th grade and above. In fact, they were very short on 6th grade elixirs. Yi Qing Han frowned slightly. He did not expect these races to ask for so little. This was not a trade at all. It was robbery. Is this how the Tao realm holy lands and the 12 great sage royal races trade with you? Yi Qing Han asked with a frown. Sigh. If they trade with us like this, why would we bother to look for you? Everyone smiled bitterly. They did not dare to speak loudly and could only send messages secretly. They are offering 10 times the market price. Some races can't even buy the elixirs. They are not willing to sell. They are suppressing our races. Since we can't afford them, we can only accumulate the materials. We have saved quite a lot over the years. 10 times the market price. That was a terrifying number. Some races could not even afford a 7th grade life-saving elixir even if they tried their best. Yi Qing Han's lips curled up. It turned out that the greedy humans were not the only ones. The 12 great sage royal races and the sovereign race were also oppressing them. Yi Qing Han stared at the crowd and said coldly, "You provide the materials and refine the elixirs. You get 20% and I get 80%. You don't need to pay any additional spirit crystals. Before the races could rejoice, the young experts from the 12 great sage royal races and the sovereign race stepped forward and scolded coldly, "Kid, you have some guts. They are the vassal races of the 12 great sage royal races and the sovereign race. You have no right to trade with them." Boom! Yi Qinghan responded with a kick. Yi Qinghan lifted his foot and kicked the expert who had spoken, sending him flying. Then he reached out and grabbed the neck of one of the sage monarchs, who was in the 5th heaven of the immortal gate. He pressed his hand down and forced the expert to his knees. Then he lifted his foot and stomped down on him. "Who dares to stop us from doing business? Let's see if your fists are hard enough." Yi Qinghan's lips curled up. He glanced at the Saint Royal race and the sovereign race experts and knew that they had come under the Boundary Emperor's orders. He immediately mocked them. Chapter 285. The true experts of the Sage Monarch tribe and the Imperials were in the boundless space. With Yi Qinghan's battle prowess, he could sweep through the universe's younger generation with a wave of his hand. "Yi Qinghan, don't be too arrogant. There are some rules you'd better not mess with." The Azure Dragon tribe's young invincible king, Long Can, had crossed the 70 districts. Although he had been eliminated, he was still incomparably strong. Boom! Yi Qinghan's aura erupted, and his grade 8 Azure Dragon bloodline roared. His aura soared to the stars, and he crushed the body of the expert beneath him, causing him to faint on the spot. Boom boom boom, Yi Qinghan's robes fluttered as he took one step at a time. His eyes emitted a dragon light, and his body exuded a terrifying dragon aura. It was very pure. The grade 8 Azure Dragon bloodline had been bestowed by the 9 Dragon Sovereign, so it couldn't be compared to the current Azure Dragon bloodline. Thud thud thud, Long Can's face was pale as he retreated. However, Yi Qinghan's aura grew stronger, and he was forced to kneel on the ground. Boom! The ground cracked as Long Can knelt. The Sage Monarch tribe's bloodline couldn't withstand the might of a high-level dragon. They all knelt, not daring to blaspheme. This was the power of the bloodline. Among the myriad races, the dragon bloodline was a supreme existence. Apart from the Phoenix bloodline, the Black Tortoise bloodline, and the Chelan bloodline, no other race could resist the dragon bloodline. The Quasi-Emperors were shocked, and they all turned to look at Yi Qinghan. He was like an ancient dragon god, and his aura rose with every step he took. It was incomparably terrifying. Yi Qinghan looked at the 12 Sage Monarch tribe Quasi-Emperors, the Imperials, and the Azure Dragon tribe Quasi-Emperors. His eyes ignored the shackles of space, and he didn't show the slightest bit of weakness. He had the human Emperor's guardian sword in hand, and if worst came to worst, he could return to the killing god world or go to the human race's ancestral land to ask for the martial Emperor's corpse. "I want to make a deal with the myriad races. Do you have any objections? If you want to object, then come out and tell me. Don't do anything sneaky behind my back. If I find out that the race I'm dealing with is being persecuted, then don't let me find out. Otherwise, you'll have to stop me from attaining my Tao." Yi Qinghan warned in a cold voice. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. This was the first time they had seen an immortal sect expert warning a boundary emperor. Yi Qinghan's arrogance was outrageous. The boundary emperors were dissatisfied. This was a very serious provocation. Moreover, Yi Qinghan had stepped on their interests. "Yi Choose, how dare you? Don't think that you can be impudent just because you're a decent genius. If you don't prove your Tao, you're nothing." Monarch tribe quasi-race. Use Emperor. Boom. The 12 divine ancestors were furious. They wanted to take this opportunity to crush Yi Qinghan. Their auras surged into the clouds, and their killing intent soared into the sky. The human cultivator frowned. What right did Yi Qinghan have to speak like this? Can tease. Did he get an emperor weapon in the endless space? Yi Qinghan's lips curled up. He formed a seal with his palms and took out the human emperor's guardian sword. The divine martial emperor's codex hung above his head, exuding a terrifying aura. The paladin Buddha pagoda shone brightly, protecting the golden body. Its aura was 10,000 feet high, and the golden body was 10,000 feet high, looking down on all living beings. Doing this was just making enemies for himself. The arrogant sect had no emperor boundary, and Emperor Shang had fallen. If Yi Qinghan didn't do it, who could? Yi Qinghan had already made up his mind. He knew that this attack was inevitable. He had to intimidate the experts of the 10,000 races. If the young elites of the insane sect were killed, Qin Heng's Wuxian would not turn against the experts of the 10,000 races. If the ancient massacre god was not strong, he had to be strong. Otherwise, with so many elites, if one died, he would regret it to death. If Di Longtian, Emperor Yi, or Si Wuxia were assassinated, he would go crazy. Boom! Yi Qinghan stepped into the center and looked down at the myriad races. He said in a low voice, "Since I dared to say it, I have a way to save my life. Do you think I only have these two extreme Dao Emperor weapons? If anyone dares to kill my people with their cultivation realm, I will use these extreme Dao Emperor weapons to wipe out your race. If one isn't enough, I will use two. If two isn't enough, I will use three. Let's see which race dares to resist the revival of three extreme Dao Emperor weapons. Within 1,000 years, my arrogant sect will have someone to prove his Dao. No one can stop him." The boundary emperors felt a chill down their spines, and they felt a stabbing pain in their souls. Some people shouldn't force me to go crazy. When I go crazy, I'm afraid I can't even control myself. Yi Qinghan stared at the Qilin tiger with murderous intent radiating from him. Then, he said coldly, "Qilin tiger, if you want to fight, I'll fight with you right now. Let's see if I can defeat you without my emperor weapon or boundary emperor weapon." A first-tier immortal gate cultivator challenging a 9th-tier immortal gate cultivator. Even someone with a golden bloodline like Si Wuxia might not dare to do so. However, Yi Qinghan had a 50% chance of suppressing the Qilin tiger. He would tear his body apart and seize his bloodline. The corner of the Qilin tiger's mouth rose, revealing a trace of killing intent. He was worried that he couldn't find a chance to kill Yi Qinghan. He didn't expect that Yi Qinghan would take the initiative to provoke him. He couldn't help but step forward. Alright, now is the time when the endless universe is going through a great tribulation. Don't bother about small benefits. No race can stop Yi Qinghan from purchasing 7th and 8th grade materials. If anyone dares to stop him at this juncture, they will be the enemy of the Azure Dragon. The Azure Dragon Boundary Emperor stomped the ground, and his dragon power erupted. The purity of his dragon power wasn't inferior to Yi Qinghan's dragon power. It intimidated thousands of experts, and even the boundary emperors had to give him face. The Qilin tiger frowned. He didn't expect the boundary emperor of the Azure Dragon race to speak up for Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan's eyes narrowed into slits as he stared at the Azure Dragon Quasi-Emperor. Who would have thought that the Azure Dragon Quasi-Emperor would step forward instead of the human race experts? Was it for his blood essence? Thank you, Azure Dragon Boundary Emperor. You have great foresight. Please warn those rascals not to use their cultivation realms to kill the people of the arrogant sect. Otherwise, the consequences will be severe. Yi Qinghan was still strong. The stronger he was, the more the myriad races and the human race wouldn't dare to act recklessly. Who knew if Yi Qinghan still had extreme Dao Emperor weapons? The number of extreme Dao Emperor weapons in Yi Qinghan's hands was no less than all the Emperor weapons of the human race. In addition to Shi Ji's pseudo-extreme Dao divine weapon, the arrogant sect's foundation was no weaker than any Dao realm sacred ground. The awakening of an extreme Dao Emperor weapon could destroy a powerful Dao realm sacred ground, and even the sage royal tribe. Alright. If any of the younger generation of the arrogant sect dies for no reason, you don't have to do anything. I will do it myself. Azure Dragon Boundary Emperor looked indifferently at the Tiger Qilin clan and the other clans that were targeting the arrogant sect. Yi Qinghan smiled. With Azure Dragon's guarantee, the arrogant sect couldn't sit back and relax. However, it was enough to deter some rascals. As for the Tiger Qilin clan and the 4 great divine beast clans, they couldn't care less. With Azure Dragon's intervention, more forces from the myriad races chose to trade with Yi Qinghan. As the saying goes, the law can't punish the majority. With more clans taking the lead, a large number of elixirs above level 6 appeared in front of Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan kept the Emperor's sword and the Divine Martial Imperial Codex and returned to the city wall indifferently. He told them the rules of the trade, which made the experts of the myriad races excited. They took out their treasures and elixirs. Lin Wutian and Huang Tian helped to record them. Yi Qinghan took all of them. In half a morning, he had collected tens of thousands of level 6 elixirs and hundreds of level 7 elixirs. It was enough to forge tens of thousands of supreme elixirs and more than 100 level 7 elixirs. Yi Qinghan looked at the many fake emperors and experts of the divine martial realm in the complete divine martial realm. He nodded slightly and said, "Everyone, please be patient. Half a month later, you can come to the Hunter Hall. I will give you all the elixirs." Everyone was overjoyed. They weren't afraid that Yi Qinghan would go back on his word. With the ancient massacre god behind him and the arrogant sect having so many invincible experts, they couldn't afford to lose face. Yi Qinghan kept all the elixirs and stepped forward. He looked at the endless space. There were more than 30 people who had entered the battle zone of the King of 100 Battles. They were waiting for the wills of Emperor Xianyuan and Venerable 9 Dragons to descend. However, with so many people gathered, the wills of the emperors didn't appear at all. It was as if they were waiting for something. Now, in the entire endless space, the top 40 experts of the life tablets, except for Si Wuxia, have all arrived. Could it be that they are waiting for that human brat? Long Qiong and other super experts frowned. They didn't want to waste time in the battle zone of the King of 100 Battles. Their battle intent soared as they scanned the human experts. Emperor Ye's clothes fluttered in the wind. He and Yang Zhan stood at the front. His black hair danced in the wind. His eyes were wide open, deep and boundless. A cool breeze blew by, shaking the zither strings and releasing a murderous melody that intimidated everyone. Lin Aoqiong and Gu Qingyu guarded Emperor Yi from both sides. Their sword qi pierced through the clouds. Their cold swordsmanship was emotionless, but humans had emotions. Emperor Yi was Yi Qinghan's lifeblood. She couldn't let anything happen to anyone but herself. Xia Qiyue and Xia Ziluo stood back to back. At this moment, other than their closest relatives, they couldn't trust anyone. Otherwise, they wouldn't even know what would happen if they were eliminated. Jian Qinxue stepped on the snow dragon. Her white clothes danced with the rhythm of the melody. She floated like an immortal, standing on the dragon's head. She looked incomparably weak, but when she exploded, she could definitely kill a hero and kill the royal bloodline. The parrot stood valiantly on her shoulder, looking at the real king of endless space provocatively. It seemed that she had a life-saving trump card and wasn't afraid at all. Shirgu was leaning on a big rock with a brick in his hand. He was shouting about a spiritual grass that he had picked from an unknown place. His legs were crossed and he looked extremely relaxed. Feng Wuxia stood beside Jian Qinxue. He looked like an ethereal being. If it wasn't for Jian Qinxue, no one would have noticed him. The Kuang sect was too strong. Emperor Yi, Jian Qinxue, Feng Wuxia, Shirgu, Gu Qingyu, Stan Wuxia, Sikong Qingjun, and the rookie were all eliminated. There were at least 10 experts left. If Mu Yu, Tianqian, Nangong Qingyue, Yi Qinghan, and Di Long Tian were counted, the true supreme experts were equivalent to half of the King of 100 Battles. Lin Aoqiong and Tian Gongshen were outsiders of the Kuang sect. At the critical moment, they would definitely side with the Kuang sect. Xia Qiue and Xia Ziluo would also stand on the Kuang sect's side. Even if Zhang Ge didn't help, at least he wouldn't attack the Kuang sect. The hero's clothes fluttered, and the sound echoed through the clouds. Aya. So boring. Should we kick everyone from the Kuang sect out? Xian Zhoutian sneered. Yang Zhan, Zhang Ge, and 5 or 6 Dao realm saints and those with special constitutions raised their eyebrows. If the Kuang sect was kicked out, the human race would be weakened overall. You're courting death. I can kick all of you out with a brick. Shi Ge was furious. He sat up, grabbed the brick, and walked forward. Humph, how arrogant. I can kick all of you out alone. Long Qiong was indifferent. She looked down at the people from the Kuang sect. Boom! Qitian Monkey King's staff pierced through the King of 100 Battles battle zone. His aura was so strong that no one dared to stand dozens of meters away. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.